I'm playing Marvel Legends. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 176 Dual Opening Artifacts. The third floor of the Woma Temple. 2222. 2222. Dense bullets poured out from the M134 rapid-fire machine gun in Marfa's hand like raindrops. Unlike the previous time, this time, the bullets and firearms used by Marfa were all produced by the assembly line that he bought from Tony with his own money. After all, he is rich now. Who is willing to chop monsters one by one like before? Isn't it better to cheat? Isn't it just a US dollar? Isn't this thing just a few bottles of potion from the ground, and go back to mix it with some Wahoo pure water? 222, 222. With Ziobe as a gun rack, Marfa was so happy when he started shooting. The experience value was rising rapidly at a speed visible to the naked eye. It took about an hour for Marfa to completely clear all the monsters on the third floor of Woma. Just like the previous time, the only one left to deal with now is the Woma leader. The only difference from before was that this time, Marfa planned to change his fighting style to verify his guess. Ghost Shield. As an amulet hit Ziobe, a half-real and half-virtual tail immediately grew out from Ziobe's buttocks. Ziobe, go. Kirakura. Since Ziobe in the game is different from the real world and has no independent consciousness, he immediately rushed towards the Wommer cult master with a bloodstained and rusty axe in his hand after hearing Marfa's command. 3 Ziobe took the lead and chopped the Wommer cult master with an axe without hesitation. The bright red number floated over the head of the Wommer cult master. For the 5,000 health points of the Wommer cult master, it was not painful. Marfa waited quietly, waiting for the birth of a miracle. Sure enough, the Wommer cult master took action. Countless electric currents began to gather between his hands, and dense arcs of electricity were like dancing elves, entwining on his palms. Sizzle. Sizzle. The sound of electric arcs piercing the air was endless, and it was so creepy just to hear it. The next moment, the Wommer leader waved his hands directly at Ziobe, and the powerful electric current immediately hit Ziobe. However, just as Ziobe was about to be hit, the half-real and half-virtual tail behind him started to move. The tail suddenly stretched out and turned into a long whip to sweep the electric current between the hands of the Wommer leader. In the blink of an eye, the electric current disappeared without a trace. Awesome! Marfa couldn't help but shout out. The attack of the Wommer leader was magic damage, and the magic-modified Ghost Shield had a better ability to absorb magic and energy attacks. Marfa had previously speculated that if the Ghost Shield was used in the legendary world, could the Wommer leader be completely defeated? Sure enough, Ziobe's previous performance perfectly confirmed this point. After the tail absorbed more than 10 attacks from the Wommer leader, the length of the tail finally reached the limit of 2 meters. Then, one of its tails whipped towards the Woma cult master. Sizzle. A dazzling flash of lightning passed by, and the tail was like a bolt of lightning, directly whipping the Woma cult master. 300. Fuck. Marfa was stunned. At present, a soulfire talisman of his could only cause about 20 points of damage to the Woma cult master, but this ghost shield could actually cause a huge damage of up to 300 points to the Woma cult master in an instant. Isn't this cheating? Marfa felt that his ghost shield was a bit supermodel. Ouch! In just a short moment, he suffered such a great damage, and the Woma cult master immediately teleported and ran away. However, the third floor of the Woma temple is so small, and Marfa has already run many times, so he has a clear understanding of the terrain, and soon found the location of the Woma cult master again. Poison. Red. Poison. Green. After the test, Marfa immediately planned to go all out. Keep going, Ziobe. Kirakura. With Ziobe as a meat shield, this time Marfa directly connected the muzzle of the M134 machine gun in front of Ziobe. What if the hit rate is low? I will kill him directly at the face. How can you hide? Bang, 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 bang. The metal storm poured out from in front of Ziobe. 3, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. Dense red numbers floated over the head of the Wommer leader. When Ziobe's tail was full of energy again and directly hit the Wommer leader with a damage value of up to 600, the Wommer leader immediately fell into a pool of blood unwillingly. External plug-in plus high technology. Come on, Let me ask you if you are afraid. The Wamor leader still dropped gold all over the ground like last time. But soon, Marfa's eyes widened and he was stunned. Fuck. So dazzling. What is that? Looking at the dazzling light, Marfa's heart instantly began to beat wildly. Stick. It's actually a stick. If someone asks what is the most representative weapon of a Taoist priest, I'm afraid many people will blurt out the 3 words Fan. But if you ask what weapon is the most distinctive for the Taoist profession, it is undoubtedly the Wuji stick. Wuji stick, top grade, durability. 2/25, attack. 8-21, +5, Taoist magic. 8-10, +5, accuracy, +5, +5, Taoist magic required. 25, I was stunned. Is this the legendary Ruai Jingu Bang? A magical weapon. Not only does it add 5 points to attack and Taoist magic, but it also adds 5 points to accuracy. Isn't this the legendary 555 card? Too dazzling, too dazzling. The golden legend is not enough to describe the stick in front of me. At this time, Marfa didn't care about other golden glittering things. He held the Wuji stick made of 1,000-year-old peach wood tightly in his hands. Suddenly, a strong force gushed out from the Wuji stick and directly flowed into Marfa's body. This feeling of blood connection is simply wonderful. His fingers gently stroked the stick of Wuji stick. The oily texture, combined with the 4 circles of unknown metal at both ends of the Wuji stick. At this time, Marfa really wanted to shout, who else? Kirakura. Seeing the master kissing and touching the ground like a fool, Xiaobei, who had no independent consciousness, couldn't help but move his feet slightly to the other side. He was afraid that the master would turn around and hug his thigh bone like the stick, kissing and touching it. Looking at Xiaobei's disgusted expression, Marfa just came back from his obsession with the stick and swept his eyes to the ground again. What is that? Soon, a green piece of equipment caught Marfa's attention. It was a green hat. Yes, it was really shiny green, dazzling green, and dazzling green. There were many gold threads embedded on the hat, which intertwined and finally gathered at the forehead of the hat, where a ruby the size of a pigeon egg was embedded. The combination of red and green simply blinded Marfa's eyes. Prayer helmet, top grade, durability. 4/5, defense. 3-4, magic defense. 1-3, +1, attack. 0-3, +3, Taoism. 0-5, +5, required level. 18, Pa. The hat fell to the ground and Marfa knelt down. His eyes were full of tears, and he looked as miserable as he could be. The equipment was top grade, and even a super top grade, which naturally went without saying. But if Marfa was wearing a green hat, how could he face people? Normally, it would be fine. With a one-click dress-changing function, no one would notice the dazzling green on Marfa's head. But what if the light of temptation is used? You know, Marfa's spiritual projection is wearing equipment. Or what if he fights with Ancient One in the future and his soul is slapped out by Ancient One? Would Ancient One see his green-hatted soul? But, 5 points of Taoism. Excited heart, trembling hands. With an extremely tangled mood, Marfa finally couldn't help but use the attributes of this top-quality equipment and wore it on his head. For a moment, Marfa felt like a star in the night sky, so bright and so green. P.S. This is really not the lobster's deliberate poison, but the forgiveness color of the prayer helmet is really that shining. But don't worry, in the next chapter, the lobster will find a way to fix it, and will never let the protagonist wear a green hat all the time. Chapter 177 Another strange incident. After returning to the main city, he repaired his equipment. Marfa looked at his current appearance towards the moat of Biki City. Oh my god. It's so ugly. What a handsome head of silver hair, and he actually wore a hat, and the key is that it's green. At first glance, he looked like an Indian. Little brother in front, wait for me. Just as Marfa was a little dizzy looking at his image, a crisp child's voice sounded from a distance. Looking for the sound, he saw a little girl holding a candied hawes and running towards Marfa. Little brother, are you an adventurer? The little girl opened her big watery eyes and said innocently. Yes, little sister, what's the matter? Looking at the little girl in front of him with lively eyes, like a doll, Marfa's previous unhappiness was instantly swept away. Little brother, I heard that adventurers are very powerful. You are an adventurer, you must be very powerful. The little girl said with her big eyes blinking. Looking at such a cute little girl in front of him, Marfa couldn't help but close his eyes silently. 3 years as the starting point. The maximum penalty is death penalty. 3 years as the starting point. The maximum penalty is death penalty. After reciting silently for a moment, Marfa slowly opened his eyes. His eyes were extremely clear, and he had no impulse to knead the little girl's cute face like plasticine. Brother, I am the daughter of the owner of the clothing store. My father went to the Bicky mine to mine a few years ago, saying that he would make me a skirt inlaid with the gold threads, but he never came back. My mother cried every night looking at the clothes left by my father. Can you help me find my father in the Bicky mine? At first, Marfa didn't think much about seeing such a cute little girl. But until the little girl finished speaking, Marfa immediately realized that something was wrong. This is the legendary game world. Where did the little girl come from? In an instant, the grocery store owner and the archer guard immediately appeared in Marfa's mind. There is something wrong with this little girl, a big problem. Marfa thought secretly in his mind. Isn't this clearly a task for himself? Thinking of this, Marfa spoke immediately. Well, little sister, the bitch mine is full of dangers. There are scary zombies. Woo. There are disgusting cave maggots. Gurgle gurgle. Marfa said to the little girl in front of him in a sinister way. Well, if little brother can help me find my father, I will let my mother help you strengthen a piece of equipment. My mother's craftsmanship is very good. Not only can it improve the attributes of the equipment, change the appearance of the equipment, but there's even a chance to get blessings and obtain additional special effects. The little girl said sincerely. Upon hearing this, Marfa's eyes flashed instantly. Improving attributes and getting blessings is not a big deal, but changing the appearance of equipment is too important. Didn't you see such a big green hat on your head? Marfa didn't think that the appearance of the little girl in front of him was really like the online game novels, and he triggered some hidden tasks. He just disliked the ugly prayer helmet, and then such a task appeared, as if he was afraid that he would not wear it because of the color of the hat. If you say there is no trick, Marfa will never believe it. But since the other party was determined to solve the problem he encountered, Marfa naturally didn't mind playing a scene with him. What did you ask me to help you with just now? Marfa pretended to be in the play. Little brother, can you help me find my father in the Bicky mine? Of course, as a Taoist priest, it is my duty to help those who are in justice. Little sister, don't worry, brother will definitely help you bring your father back. Marfa said confidently, without any hesitation before. To be honest, Marfa didn't want to go to the ghost place like the Bicky mine a long time ago. After all, just like he just coaxed a child, as long as he saw those zombies with distorted faces and maggots all over their bodies, Marfa's stomach would churn. However, the Bicky mine is actually a place that Marfa must go sooner or later. Not for anything else, because there is a mysterious place in the Bicky mine, called the Corpse King Palace. Old players who have played Legend know that there are no other monsters in the Corpse King Palace, only the Corpse King. There were 7 or 8 or dozens of them, all crowded together in a small square room. Once they found an intruder, they would rush forward. This was a nightmare for mages and warriors who didn't have a pet to block the damage. Of course, if the mage was high enough and had good equipment, it would be another matter. Putting up a wall of fire and leading a group of zombies around in circles was like the mother of a female star who made 2.08 million a day opening the door for a female star. It was so cool. The bitch mine was very large. It looked like just a cave, but in fact, there was a different world inside. It was ridiculously large. It was connected in all directions, crisscrossed, and even led to the legendary king's tomb like the orc tomb. Marfa looked at the portrait given by the little girl, and kept going around in the mine alone, and soon, got lost. Fortunately, he had a teleportation ring, otherwise he would have had to use a return scroll or a dungeon escape scroll. After turning a corner, a cave maggot as big as a piglet suddenly appeared in front of Marfa. Oh hey! Isn't this a bit outrageous? Where did such a big cave maggot come from in the legend? Looking at the fat, white, and squirming big guy in front of him, Marfa immediately took a breath of cold air. If you look closely, you can find that its milky white body is like a water ball that has expanded to the limit. It feels like a pool of white pus will burst out if you poke it slightly. At this time, the huge cave maggot also obviously discovered Marfa. The man and the worm looked at each other for a moment, but saw that the cave maggot suddenly opened its mucus-filled mouth and began to roar. Hiss! Hiss! The roar was rapid and regular, not to mention, it was very exciting to listen to. However, before Marfa left, the stone wall of the mine began to make a rustling sound. Then, countless pieces of rubble fell from the stone wall of the mine. Then, a normal-sized cave maggot that was slightly larger than a mouse came out. The cave maggots gathered more and more, and in the blink of an eye, a milky white sea of cave maggots appeared in front of Marfa. Those cave maggots were densely packed, shoulder to shoulder, and some even overlapped each other. At first glance, it looked like waves rising and falling, which made people feel scared. Gudong. Marfa swallowed deeply and was about to retreat. He wanted to retreat directly, but at this time, he was already surrounded by dense cave maggots. The huge cave maggot was looking at Marfa with a smug look on his face, as if to declare his lofty status. "This is. Do you believe me when I say I'm just passing by?" Marfa said with a dark face. "I accepted a mission and came to find the husband of the clothing store owner. How did I encounter such a bad thing? Kill?" Marfa will not forget that the body of the cave maggot will explode at the moment of killing it. As long as I think of the milky white pus all over the ground. Immediately, Marfa no longer hesitated and immediately took out the teleportation ring, ready to leave this ghost place first. However, looking at the teleportation ring with only one durability left, Marfa hesitated. "When I got lost before, I used the teleportation ring too many times and didn't realize this problem at all. In the legendary game, once the equipment durability reaches 0, it will directly shatter and disappear. The teleportation ring is too important to Marfa. Marfa dare not gamble and can't afford it. As for the random teleportation scrolls, they have been used up long ago. Now Marfa only has a stack of return scrolls and a stack of dungeon escape scrolls in his backpack. After all, since he got the teleportation ring, Marfa rarely carries random teleportation scrolls. Usually, he only prepares one stack for emergency escape." Hiss, hiss, hiss. Just as Marfa hesitated, the largest cave maggot began to roar again. Then, the small cave maggots rushed towards Marfa like soldiers who heard the general's order. Summon skeleton technique. "Zion obey, you hold on, I'll retreat first." After saying that, Marfa immediately aimed in a direction, used the Wuji stick in his hand to push away the cave maggots blocking the road, and kept casting invisibility on himself to eliminate the hatred value. Chapter 178 today is different from the past. Soon, poor Ziobe was submerged in the sea of cave maggots. Looking at the broken bones and the cave maggots still wriggling on the bones, Marfa felt that she was not feeling well. After all, the poisonous mist sprayed by the cave maggots has a chance to paralyze the target. If the hundreds of cave maggots in front of her sprayed poisonous mist together, Marfa would most likely be paralyzed directly, and then she would give up her virginity in reluctance and disgust. Of course, she might really die forever. Marfa has not died in the legendary world so far, and it is not clear whether she can be resurrected after death like in the game. Thinking that if she had been a little slower, she might have died directly like Ziobe, Marfa could not help but feel scared. Marfa even felt as if countless cave maggots were wriggling on her body. She felt a little bad at this moment. Retreating now was undoubtedly the best choice. But there must be something wrong when things are abnormal. There is no cave maggot boss in the legendary game. Since it has appeared, it means that there must be something fishy. The more Marfa thought about it, the more he felt that this was the case. The fear that had been lingering in his heart was immediately dispelled by the unknown benefits. Money can make people happy. The brave will die of overeating and the timid will die of starvation. Go. Marfa's eyes were firm, and there was a hint of murderous aura on his body. Then he began to make arrangements. Just like the previous fight with the man-eating plant and the poisonous spider, the attack methods that were not recognized by the system, even if they could cause damage to the monster, were minimal. But when some monsters encounter certain things, they will instinctively feel fear, which will affect their actions. The poisonous spider and the man-eating plant are afraid of fire, and the cave maggots are naturally not immune to this law. Thinking of this, Marfa immediately ran in the direction he came from. Near a cave entrance not far away, Marfa remembered that he had seen a damaged minecart and some wooden racks used to collect ore from the top of the mine. 10 minutes later, looking at the pile of firewood in front of him that had been sprinkled with gunpowder removed from bullets, Marfa couldn't help but raise the corners of his mouth slightly, revealing an expression of determination. Stepping over the firewood pile, Marfa walked towards the giant cave maggot again. The moment he saw the giant cave maggot, Marfa directly threw a set of poisoning spells at it. Poisoning spell. Poisoning spell. Red. Poisoning spell. Green. In an instant, The originally milky white and chubby cave maggot immediately turned into a big green caterpillar. Hiss! Hiss! Feeling the burning pain brought by the green poison, the giant cave maggot immediately couldn't help but roar. Then, achoo! Puff! A pool of sticky excrement mixed with blood was secreted from the tail of the cave maggot. Hiss! Hiss! The giant cave maggot was furious. Its dignity and glory as a king disappeared at this moment. The roar immediately attracted the attention of the group of small cave maggots around. With the giant cave maggot's order, the small cave maggots immediately rushed towards Marfa like a tide, wriggling their fat bodies one after another. What's more, before entering the range, they had already straightened their bodies and began to spray flocks containing paralytic toxins at Marfa. Without hesitation, Marfa immediately threw a soulfire talisman from the center of the sea of worms. The air wave generated by the explosion was like a tsunami, blowing away the mouse-sized cave maggot. 28, minus 42, minus 42, minus 36, minus 38. A long string of bright red numbers floated by, and Marfa was instantly dumbfounded. Awesome! Is this the effect of the Wuji stick plus the green hat? No wonder some people say that if you want to live a decent life, you have to have a little green on your head. Before changing the equipment, when Marfa brushed Woma, it was only more than 20 damage, but now it has soared to more than 40. Although a big factor is the different defense of the monsters themselves, the monsters in the Woma temple are already a level higher than those in the big mine, but it is enough to show the power of these two artifacts. You know, the cave maggots have only 68 points of blood in total. This blow almost crippled them. The damage is simply off the charts. At first, Marfa planned to light firewood and make a cottage firewall to block the attack of the cave maggots, and he hid behind the firewall and shot with M134. But now, what do you want, M134? Isn't the soulfire talisman fragrant? The M134 rapid-fire machine gun, equipped with armor-piercing bullets, can cause 1 point of damage to 3 or 4 monsters each. According to the most common speed, it can fire about 4,000 bullets per minute. Because of the accuracy problem, even if the cave maggots are densely packed, there will be many misses. In other words, the total damage of M134 in 1 minute is about 12,000 to 15,000. The soulfire talisman of Marfa has been enhanced by the magic-modified mental force combat method, from a single damage skill to a group damage skill. Therefore, each soulfire talisman will cause the same explosion damage to the monsters around the target. This hits a large area, and a large area. Although the attack frequency cannot be compared with M134, in a narrow passage like a mine, the damage of the soulfire talisman can be said to be exerted to the limit, and the total damage caused is even much higher than that of M134. And because ordinary cave maggots are small in size, the air wave caused by the explosion of each soulfire talisman can blow the cave maggots away, which is equivalent to disguised repulsion effect. Invincible. Absolutely invincible. What else do you need? A small fire. What else do you need? M134. Boom boom boom. Boom boom boom. Having tasted the sweetness, Marfa immediately began to smash the soulfire talisman with great pleasure. The experience value also rose rapidly in the process of the death of the massive cave maggots. After Marfa, who is already level 27, cleaned up the cave maggots like a tide, his level directly jumped to level 28, and his experience value continued to rise rapidly. Awesome. So awesome. Except for the fact that it is a bit tiring for the ears, this feeling is simply wonderful. Every 2 soulfire talismans, you can see a long string of experience value plus 150 words floating by. What could be more awesome than this? At this time, when Marfa looked at the cave maggots in front of him like a tide, he no longer felt disgusted. Don't say, they are white and fat, and quite cute. For more than an hour, Marfa drank blue potions and threw soulfire talismans. Marfa only felt like a tool without emotions, repeating the same actions, boring, tedious but so exciting. Soon, under such high-intensity continuous casting, Marfa's magic potion, blue potion, was exhausted, but this did not affect Marfa's continued output. Didn't you see the golden glitter all over the ground? Although the cave maggots dropped only magic potions, medium amount, the recovery effect is far less than the powerful magic potions that Marfa usually uses, but it's better than nothing, right? Anyway, in the real world, magic potions are useless to ordinary people, let alone diluting them. Even if they are taken out in their original form, I'm afraid they can't be sold. You know, The melee mages of Kamartaj only borrow the mana of Vishanti when using magic. They don't need to practice magic power like Wanda. Their white magician lineage is more about training physical and mental strength. Since they can't sell it, Marfa will naturally not feel bad about using it. After about half an hour, finally, there are no more living holes in Marfa's eyes. Well, there's still one. That's right, the only one left is the giant cave maggot that shouted at Marfa before. Little cutie. Marfa rubbed his hands and showed what he thought was the most kind expression. He slightly bent his back and walked slowly towards the cave maggot. However, the giant cave maggot was like an innocent girl seeing a molester. It squirmed its fat body crazily and ran away as if it didn't care about its life. Hiss, hiss, hiss. Don't come over, JPG, it's not that you are running, I just want to thank you. After all, you helped me level up 2 levels and gain more experience. Marfa said seriously. However, the cave maggot ran even harder, and it was clearly saying, I don't believe it, you are lying. If you run again, I will do it. Marfa threatened. Hiss, I would rather, hiss, die, hiss, not, hiss, yield. It is worthy of being a monster that has never appeared in the original game. Like those weird NPCs, the cave maggot in front of him showed wisdom that no other monsters have ever had. But this wisdom combined with the image of the giant cave maggot. Looking at the funny-looking cave maggot in front of him, Marfa didn't know whether he should take action or not. Chapter 179 Tactical Retreat. While Marfa was hesitating whether to attack the giant cave maggot, the cave maggot on the other side suddenly braked and stopped its devilish pace. Hiss, hiss, hiss. The roar sounded again. A zombie wearing a monk's robe and a string of prayer beads around his neck suddenly emerged from the ground and staggered towards Marfa. Question mark? Marfa was puzzled. Is this the reinforcement you invited? Marfa doubted his eyes. Isn't the zombie in front of him the same as an ordinary monk's robe zombie? However, the next second, something strange happened. The giant cave maggot actually drilled down along the hole left by the monk's robe zombie when it drilled out of the ground. It's a trick. Marfa said nothing, relying on a speed far exceeding that of the monk's robe zombie. He easily bypassed it, and then pounced and drilled into the hole left by the monk's robe zombie just now. Pa. With a brief blackness in front of his eyes, Marfa only felt his body weightless for about 2 seconds, and then his feet landed on the ground. What appeared in front of him was a square room with a length and width of more than 20 meters. On the dim stone wall, a few candles were emitting weak light, illuminating this space. Before Marfa could react, he saw a figure slowly walking out of a dark corner of the room. The man's skin was dark gray, as if he had already turned into a corpse. The iron chain wrapped around his hands was dragging on the ground. With every step he took, the iron chain would rub against the rocks on the ground and make a crisp sound. Following behind him was the giant cave maggot that Marfa had chased all over the mine. Hiss, hiss. The cave maggot roared at Marfa, as if to say, I have the support of the boss, you kid, come on. However, Marfa ignored the shouting cave maggot, but frowned tightly, revealing a thoughtful look. Marfa recognized the zombie in front of him, which was different from the one upstairs, as the legendary Corpse King. Since the Corpse King has appeared, there is no doubt that this is the Corpse King's palace. The Corpse King's palace can be said to be a very special map in the legendary game. As Marfa saw, there is no way out here. If you want to leave the Corpse King's palace, you can only rely on teleportation props such as the return scroll or the magician's skills to move instantly. Of course, the reason why it is special is not just that there is no way in here, but the most important thing is that the Corpse King's palace is an independent space. If you want to enter the Corpse King's palace, you must find a few monk-robed zombies that refresh in a specific location compared to the mine, and then drill into the hole left by the monk-robed zombies. The locations of these special monk-robed zombies are far apart, and they are not even on the same map, but they eventually lead to the same Corpse King's palace. On the one hand, Marfa had watched the refresh of those monk-robed zombies when he played the legendary game. But most of the time, after Marfa went through hardships to enter the Corpse King's palace, the Corpse King's palace had already been taken by someone else, leaving only an empty room. Because the hole left by the monk-robed zombie will disappear soon, in order to successfully enter the Corpse King's palace, in addition to patience, a little luck is often needed before you can see the legendary Corpse King. The reason why Marfa frowned was not because of anything else, but because of the Corpse King that appeared in front of him at this moment. According to the memory of the previous life, There are at least 7 or 8 Corpse Kings in the Corpse King's palace, and it is not surprising that there are more than 10. But at this moment, Marfa looked at the entire Corpse King's palace and saw only this Corpse King in front of him, which was very unscientific. Where did the other Corpse Kings go? This is Marfa's system world, and it is impossible for anyone to snatch monsters from him. Before Marfa could figure it out, he saw the Corpse King wave his hands, and the 2 iron chains wrapped around his arms immediately smashed towards Marfa's position. Oh hey! Are you stupid, Corpse King? Your chain is so short, that's it? You want to hit me too? Marfa couldn't help but say with a slight smile on his face after estimating the distance between himself and the Corpse King. But as soon as the voice fell, Marfa's hair on his body stood up, and the spider sense was activated. With a strong sense of crisis, Marfa subconsciously moved his body 3 steps horizontally. As expected, the next second, the iron chain on the Corpse King's hand strangely extended several meters and directly inserted into the hard stone where Marfa had stood before. Fuck. Diamond blockade? That's too much? As Marfa's voice fell, the hair on his body stood up again. Fuck, you're coming again. As he spoke, Marfa immediately took a step and rushed to the side of the Corpse King. At the same time, a soulfire talisman was thrown towards the Corpse King in the direction of the Wuji stick. 28 as expected? It's worthy of being a Corpse King. The damage that hit the cave maggot was as high as 40 points, but it could only cause 28 points of damage to the Corpse King. Marfa was shocked. Fortunately, taking this opportunity, Marfa also saw the blood volume of the Corpse King 5,000. That's right, it was 5,000, which was 10 times that of an ordinary Corpse King. This Corpse King is really as abnormal as the giant cave maggot. At the same time, 2 iron chains suddenly emerged from the ground like earth dragons at the position where he was standing before, and then continued to rush towards Marfa. At the same time, the giant cave maggot beside the Corpse King also moved at this moment. I saw its body straightened, and its whole body was faintly red, as if it was congested, and then large mouthfuls of flocks containing green paralytic toxins sprayed out of its mouth. Unlike the flocks sprayed by those small cave maggots, the flocks sprayed by the giant cave maggot in front of me are more dense. If you look at it from the perspective of Ant-Man, you may find that these flocks are floating in the air like clouds, and are not affected by gravity at all. And the giant cave maggot obviously has stronger endurance than ordinary cave maggots. It continues to spray, as if there is no end. The clouds containing toxins are like poison gas, spreading outward with it as the core. I can't use the soulfire talisman anymore. Looking at the scene in front of him, Marfa thought secretly in his heart. The impact force generated by the explosion of the soulfire talisman will inevitably increase the spread of the highly toxic flocks. Once these flocks spread to the entire Corpse King palace, then he will inevitably be unable to avoid it. At that time, if the paralysis mechanism is triggered and he is pinned to the ground, there is no doubt that he will inevitably attract the crazy whipping of the Corpse King. The giant cave maggots rely on the protection of the Corpse King, and the Corpse King needs the giant cave maggots to assist in fighting to control the target's actions. This made Marfa think of the symbiotic relationship in nature. The 2 animals rely on each other and survive together, which greatly improves the competitiveness of both in the ecosystem. Xiaobei, it's up to you. As soon as the voice fell, Marfa immediately performed the summon skeleton technique while moving. The amulet turned into a little bit of misty light and fell to the ground, and another brand new Xiaobei climbed up from the ground. Holy armor technique. Ghost shield. Xiaobei received Marfa's order and immediately rushed towards the giant cave maggot, and Marfa also seized the opportunity to give Xiaobei a double defense buff. Kirakara. Kirakara. With the sound of bones rubbing against each other, Xiaobei rushed towards the giant cave maggot like a killer. But the next second, the 2 chains that were chasing Marfa suddenly changed their attack direction and hit Xiaobei directly. -100, -68. Instant kill. Hiss. Looking at the skeletons on the ground, Marfa was stunned. This is cheating. The damage is so high. Without hesitation, Marfa immediately took out the return scroll from his backpack and tore it without saying a word. The eyes went dark, and when Marfa appeared again, he had already arrived in Biki City. Chapter 180, Cracking the Hulk Serum. I can't beat him, I can't beat him. Marfa muttered with lingering fear. Although Marfa's defense is much stronger than Xiaobei in the legendary world with the blessing of a full set of equipment, after all, The total amount of mana and blood of the characters in the legendary game is only linked to the profession and level. Marfa at level 28 has only 215 blood points in total. According to the attack strength of the Corpse King, even if Marfa puts on the holy armor, he can only withstand 3 attacks from the opponent. And unfortunately, the weird Corpse King is obviously a double blade flow, which means that as long as 2 rounds of attacks, Marfa will die directly. If it were just like this, it would be fine. With the help of positioning, summoning, invisibility and long-range attacks, Marfa might be able to slowly grind the Corpse King to death, but unfortunately, this Corpse King actually has a symbiotic pet. As long as the giant cave maggot sprays toxins, it will greatly limit Marfa's movement space. Once the battle time is dragged on, there is no doubt that the toxins will spread to the entire Corpse King palace. At that time, Marfa will be blocked, and won't he be easily abused by the Corpse King? Headache. Headache. As soon as he thought of this, the excitement of Marfa's previous opening of 2 artifacts immediately disappeared. Character, Marfa. Occupation, Taoist. Level 28, Defense. 8-12, Magic Defense. 6-14, Attack. 11-32, Magic. 0-1, Taoist. 9-37, Physical Value, Blood. 215/215, Magic Value, Blue. 229/229, Skills, Healing Level 3, Mental Force Combat Method Max, Poisoning Method Max, Soul Fire Symbol Level 3, Summon Skeleton Level 3, Invisibility Level 3, Group Invisibility Level 2, Ghost Shield Max, Holy Armor Level 2, Mind Revelation Level 1, Trapped Spell Level 1, Special Skills, Spider Sense, cannot be upgraded, Big Trick, cannot be upgraded, Cancel Summoning, cannot be upgraded, Temptation Light, cannot be upgraded, Equipment, Wuji Stick, excellent, Soul Battlesuit, Men's, Soul Bracelet, excellent, Three-Eyed Bracelet, Platinum Ring 1, Glass Ring 1, excellent, DZI Bead Necklace, excellent, Prayer Helmet, excellent, Special Ring, Teleportation Ring, not equipped. The current remaining game time is 4,700 minutes. Looking at my attribute panel, I first went to the Woma Temple, and then went to the Big Mine, which only took about 5 hours. Due to the use of M134, a plug-in weapon, and the powerful skills after the transformation, Marfa only took 5 hours to level up 2 times, and even the experience bar at this time has risen to more than 90%, and level 29 can be said to be within reach. Exiting the legendary world, Marfa lay alone on the bed and thought about the strategy of the Corpse King's palace. First of all, from the previous tentative attack, it can be seen that the special Corpse King has a very wide attack range. Even if the body does not move, the attack of the 2 chains can cover the entire Corpse King's palace. Moreover, the closer to the Corpse King, the faster the chain's attack speed. In other words, it is almost impossible to rely on melee attacks, unless you connect the space node by opening a small portal and stab him with a weapon. But even if Marfa has never fought with a Corpse King in close combat, he can infer from the damage caused to the Corpse King by the previous attack of the Soul Fire symbol that a Corpse King's defense must be not low. Don't forget that the opponent has 5,000 blood points. Obviously, this way is not feasible. If melee combat doesn't work, then you can only use long-range attack. For long-range output, Marfa's best skills are naturally poisoning and soul fire symbols, and of course the M134 plugin. However, no matter what means are used, it is impossible to kill the giant cave maggot in an instant. Once the Corpse King reacts, it will inevitably increase the protection of the cave maggot. At that time, the cave maggot sprays poison, and the Corpse King attacks. Finally, Marfa has no other choice but to run away. I'm worried. Why can't the ghost shield absorb toxins? Oh. Wait? Toxins? Marfa seemed to have thought of something, and immediately used the teleportation ring to come to legendary technology. In the underground laboratory of legendary technology, Samuel was working hard at this time, constantly recording relevant data on the monitor. He was sometimes excited, sometimes lost. The expression on his face changed constantly, which was no less impressive than the Sichuan opera face changing. Looking at his hair like a chicken coop and the 2 circles of black on his eye sockets, Marfa actually had some admiration for Mr. Lan. Perhaps this is the persistence of scientists. Although Samuel Stern was a little eager for quick success and valued his reputation more than anything else, from the perspective of a scientist, Marfa still recognized him very much. In the original plot, Samuel, the big boss, secretly hid a bunch of Hulk serum, not because he had any crazy ideas to rule or destroy the world. He just wanted to prove his talent, he just wanted to explore the unknown world, he just wanted to engrave his name on the monument of human science. Before, Samuel betrayed Marfa just to get more resources and let more people praise his talents. Of course, Samuel has been spiritually imprinted by Marfa now, and finally Marfa's ideas will be deeply rooted in his heart, higher than any selfishness. How is the progress of the experiment? Hearing the voice of the boss behind him, Samuel's movement suddenly stagnated. He immediately put down the work in his hands, turned around and opened his arms to Marfa with a flushed face, as if asking for a hug. Don't. If you have something to say, please say it nicely. I don't like this. Marfa took 2 steps back and said cautiously. Ahem, boss. Good news, Jiangnan Leather Factory has closed down, the boss and the sister-in-law. Ahem, I finally deciphered the genetic code of the Hulk serum. Samuel seemed to realize that he was a little impulsive just now, and explained immediately. Oh. Marfa nodded, and then reacted. What did you say? You cracked the genetic code of the Hulk serum. Now it was Marfa's turn to lose his composure. It had been more than a year, and Marfa had gotten all the resources and money she asked for. She even got the research records of the super soldier serum. Marfa had waited for this day for too long. That's right. It's cracked. The key to the Hulk serum is the existence of the anger factor. If the anger factor is directly removed, then the Hulk serum can only exist as a genetic drug with side effects. Once injected, it means that there is no possibility of self-improvement. According to the boss's request, I ruled out this direction as soon as possible. If the anger factor is retained, there is a high probability that the subconscious and negative emotions of the receptor will be activated, thus giving birth to a second personality, just like Dr. Banner. So, rather than cracking the genetic code of the Hulk serum, it is better to say that a shackle is added to the genetic code of the Hulk serum, like a resistor regulator, which allows the receptor to freely adjust the activity of the anger factor according to demand. If it is directly carried by the human body, it is very difficult to do this, because the human body's emotional regulator is the amygdala located in the brain. As far as current medical technology is concerned, wanting to attack the amygdala is tantamount to seeking death. So I had a sudden idea, using the symbiont as a medium, first cloned the body tissue that the boss had given me before, then took out his amygdala, added the anger regulation gene based on it, and then used Riot's body tissue as a sample, injected Dr. Banner's body tissue soaked in spicy soup into it, and finally extracted the low-activity Hulk serum from it and injected it into Riot's body tissue. Sure enough, Riot's body tissue perfectly became a bridge between the two. In layman's terms, the boss's amygdala tissue is the controller, the anger regulation gene is the resistance switch, Riot's body tissue is the wire, and the anger factor in the Hulk serum is the light. All of this eventually formed a perfect closed circuit, which I call the giant cell nucleus. The giant cell nucleus will directly invade the original cells of the receptor and coexist with it to form a binuclear cell. In this way, the receptor can indirectly control the power of the Hulk through the giant cell nucleus. Samuel said excitedly. Okay, let's talk about the side effects. Marfa did not lose herself in the huge benefits in front of her, but asked calmly, contrary to her usual behavior. Side effects: the giant state cannot be maintained for a long time, because when it is turned on, the giant cell nucleus will drain the vitality of the protocell, causing it to age and die quickly. The higher the activity of the anger factor, the greater the power obtained, and the greater the burden on the protocell, so the boss must do what he can every time he transforms. And after each transformation, it takes a certain amount of time to restore the activity of the protocell before it can transform again. I have done experiments on this problem, and the recovery period can be quickly shortened through the potions developed by the boss. Of course, the above side effects only apply to you, the boss, but for others, this is just a failure, and even with the potion, they cannot avoid the fate of death. As he said, Samuel's eyes were full of sadness. In Samuel's view, a truly successful experiment will not be picky about the receptor, but the supercell he developed can only be realized on Marfa. Why? Only he can succeed? Marfa was very confused about this and asked directly. Don't you know, boss? Your genes are different from those of ordinary people. You. Chapter 181 Marfa's Superpowers. Don't you know, boss? Your genes are different from ours. You are born different from ordinary people. Your chromosome telomeres have unlimited regeneration ability. The number of cell divisions in an ordinary human life is about 50 to 100 times. In order to ensure the integrity of DNA during cell division, it is necessary to have a substance to reinforce it to prevent chromosomes from being fused or decomposed. This substance is telomeres. The length of telomeres determines the upper limit of the number of cell divisions. In other words, telomeres determine the upper limit of the lifespan of organisms. And boss, your telomeres have unlimited regeneration ability. That is to say, as long as you are not affected by external forces, theoretically you can live forever. Samuel Stern said the most shocking fact in the simplest words. A long time ago, Marfa had guessed that as the children of Natalia and Django, Wanda had a strong magical talent, and Pietro had a speed-type ability. It made no sense that he didn't have it. But later, as time went by, Marfa gradually regarded the system as his own superpower. Although the process of obtaining power was somewhat different, the final result was similar anyway. But now, Samuel's words directly answered Marfa's previous doubts. That's right, Marfa's ability is immortality. Among the difficulties, there are few who have strong recovery abilities, such as Zyojinjian and Uncle Wolf, but there is no one who truly has eternal life except for those supreme beings. Even the father-level existences such as Ancient One and Odin have an upper limit on their lifespan. Why is Ancient One willing to abandon her principles and absorb the power of the dark dimension? Isn't it because the later ones are not strong enough and can't hold up the scene, so she was forced to choose this way to prolong her life and stick to her post? The infinite regeneration of telomeres allows Marfa's cells to divide infinitely. Not only will they no longer be constrained by their lifespan, but they can also stay young forever. It's no wonder that Samuel said before that the giant cell nucleus can only be used on Marfa. Every time the taboo switch is turned on, it is equivalent to accelerating the aging and death of cells. Even if you use things like cold wound medicine to replenish vitality and accelerate cell division and regeneration, you can't avoid the damage of telomeres during cell division. And Marfa. As long as the taboo switch is turned on, healing magic or a few bottles of potion can quickly make the cells divide and regenerate, thus recovering to their original state. There is no need to worry about the damage to the telomeres in this process. It won't take long for Marfa's telomeres to return to their best condition. Shocked, this time, Marfa was really shocked. It turns out that this body actually contains such great potential. That's immortality. In Chinese terms, even if a pig lives for 1 trillion years, it is an extremely powerful existence. The previous second was still shocked by his superpower, but then Marfa suddenly couldn't help laughing. Ha ha ha, ha 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 ha, ha 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 ha. The laughter filled the entire laboratory, and Samuel on the side was immediately frightened by Marfa's sudden laughter. Is it because he knows that he is immortal and is so happy? How can he live forever in the future? Samuel thought secretly in his heart. Is Marfa really crazy? No, he was just laughing at the man who was trying so hard to create a powerful biochemical warrior. General Ross, you are determined to use my ability to research the strongest biochemical warrior. You should have known that my ability is to be immortal without external forces. I am really curious, what expression will you show when you know this? Yes, at this moment, Marfa finally figured it out. Why didn't General Ross call him to go for a physical examination for so long recently? Samuel just thought that Marfa knew it a long time ago, so he didn't tell him, but what about General Ross? It's been so long, even if his researchers are pigs, they should have discovered Marfa's superpowers. The camera goes back to chapter 159. Good. You have worked hard, and the American people will remember your great efforts. While speaking, General Ross did not forget to walk up to the researcher and patted him on the shoulder. Not only was there no previous anger in his words, but he was full of joy and appreciation. The next second, General Ross drew his pistol and shot the researcher in the head without saying a word. Good. Great. Colonel Maximov, great. Shield. Great. I didn't expect that you would play me like a monkey. Immortality? Or immortality without external forces? Is this useful for a soldier? In General Ross's view, how can one be worthy of the word soldier without experiencing the baptism of blood and fire? Only by experiencing countless battlefields can one become the strongest soldier. But how many people can there be like this? Which war is not a sea of blood and corpses? Let's not talk about whether the secret of this immortality gene can be cracked. Even if it costs a huge price to crack it, the cost of such a gene drug is absolutely outrageous. The US government may allocate a huge amount of money to let General Ross study this thing for military use. It can be imagined that every soldier injected with this gene drug will be a valuable asset of the military, and it is impossible to let them go to the battlefield. Could it be that they really just find a few people with potential, train them for dozens or hundreds of years, and then let them participate in the battle? What if they rebel? What if something unexpected happens? What if? There are too many uncontrollable factors. It is no exaggeration to say that Marfa's ability is absolutely useless to the military, no doubt about it. But what if Marfa is handed over to the US government? Obviously, it is not realistic. After all, Marfa is borrowed by him. Even if Marfa is allowed to participate in the operation, it needs to be notified to SHIELD, not to mention handing Marfa over to the US government for civilian research. After all, SHIELD is not a US department, but an organization under the United Nations. Although the United States has a huge say in the United Nations as a permanent member of the Security Council, it is not a one-man show. Once the intelligence of Marfa's ability is exposed and the United Nations decides to civilianize Marfa, then Fukuzawa will not only be in trouble with the United States. The Chinese people are all trying to surpass the United States in all aspects. In addition, with its huge population base, once those top scientific researchers have immortality, it is hard to say how long the United States can sit on the position of world hegemony. Thinking about Yuan Lao, the father of rice, and Yu Lao, the two bombs in one satellite, General Ross felt terrified. Rather than letting Marfa's power change the world pattern, it is better to destroy it as soon as possible. Thinking of this, General Ross's eyes could not help but show murderous intent. But the question is, how to kill Marfa? Special forces? Is this thing useful for a superpower like Marfa? Sniper rifle assassination? General Ross has not forgotten the scene where those bullets floated in front of Marfa and could not move forward. Threat? His father is from District 13, his brothers and sisters are all superpowers, and his mother is even more unfathomable. You can't just use nuclear weapons to blow up New York. After racking his brains and thinking about it, General Ross actually found that he really couldn't do anything to Marfa. Since he couldn't do anything to Marfa, he could only bury this secret deep, hoping that Marfa himself would never know about it. The next day, all the researchers who participated in the physical examination of Colonel Maximov inexplicably betrayed the country. General Ross led a group of elite soldiers and attacked and killed them all. Chapter 182 Spider-Man goes further and further astray. After learning about his superpowers, Marfa was also very happy. After all, as long as Marfa wanted, he could directly activate the anger factor to the maximum limit that his body could bear. One Punch Man. He turned on Hulk mode in seconds, delivered the strongest blow, then turned off Hulk mode in seconds, cast a healing spell on himself to repair the protosols, and then continued to turn on Hulk mode. Marfa had even thought of the sequence of combos. Well, Samuel, you did a good job. As his loyal pet, Marfa naturally praised him without hesitation. When can the body transformation be carried out? Since Samuel had not told him the good news before, Marfa could guess that there must be a reason. I'm afraid it will take some time. The cultivation of giant cell nuclei is very complicated, and the transformation of the boss's body is not done in one go. It needs to be carried out in about 10 times. The latest one will take at least half a month. Samuel said truthfully. Hearing this, Marfa frowned. It seems that it is impossible to defeat the weird Corpse King by relying on the giant state. Do you have a gas mask or something like that? Thinking of the original intention of coming here, Marfa immediately asked. That's right, Marfa wanted to use the things in reality to cheat and kill the Corpse King and the giant cave maggots by unconventional means. Marfa could actually still deal with the Corpse King alone, just roaming at the fastest speed, and then slowly grinding blood with long-range output. But if the poison mist is included, there is no solution. Therefore, the first thing Marfa thought of was a gas mask. Gas mask. Samuel looked at Marfa with a puzzled look, and then walked to the cabinet on the side and took out a complete set of equipment that looked like a space suit. Is this okay? After all, many toxins can penetrate through the skin. If you use this set of equipment, you can completely resist most toxins. Its built-in air filtration system can directly filter all non-oxygen molecules at the molecular level. Samuel said with some pride. In order to study the Hulk serum, he has done enough preparation. This. Marfa looked at the anti-gas suit handed over by Samuel, with a helpless look on his face. Previously, he was indeed negligent. The paralytic toxin of the cave maggots can most likely penetrate through the skin, just like Marfa's poisoning technique. Even wearing a gas mask is useless. But if he puts on this gas suit, it will be heavy and affect his movements. The most important thing is that it takes up space in his equipment. Without the bonus of the helmet and clothes, Marfa's attributes will inevitably drop significantly. How can he output at that time? After thinking for a moment, Marfa finally accepted this bulky suit with difficulty. After all, it was Samuel's intention. Maybe it would really come in handy. Slipping out of the back door of legendary technology quietly, Marfa walked alone on the streets of Manhattan. After a night of tossing and turning, it was almost dawn. It had been a long time since he reported to school. Anyway, Marfa had nothing to do, so he wanted to stay in school for a few days. In recent days, the public security in New York has been better than ever. Since Toby was fired by SHIELD, he began to suppress many underworld forces in New York with thunder-like means. When the tree falls, the monkeys scatter. Many members of the Kingpin gang saw their boss disappear, retired, changed their careers, and even many people directly joined Toby. In less than a week, Toby replaced Kingpin and became the real uncrowned king of New York City. His grandson's gang was renamed the Spider Gang, and it flourished under Toby's governance. In addition to collecting protection fees and watching the scene, the Spider Gang also regularly organizes community condolences and other people-friendly activities, which won unanimous praise from the grassroots people. Influenced by Marfa, Toby even took over the security of several ports with members of the Spider Gang as the team, providing employment opportunities for many vagrants. Of course, since it is a gang, there must be work on the surface and work in secret, otherwise, collecting protection fees and watching the scene alone cannot support such a large group. So, under the advice of his gang, Toby started smuggling again. Of course, what was smuggled was not people or guns, but equipment. The United States has strong confidentiality measures for many high-tech industries, and some high-end equipment is strictly prohibited from being exported. The Spider Gang bought them from the black market at high prices and then smuggled them to some relatively backward countries. In order to speed up their technological progress, those countries knew they were being slaughtered, but they were willing to do so. There were even many senior leaders who secretly visited the top leaders of the Spider Gang, and they almost became sworn brothers with Toby on the spot. After going through so many things, Toby was no longer the young boy he used to be. For smuggled equipment and technology, Toby always checked it himself, and would never touch some sensitive industries even if the profits were high. And he took the initiative to pay 50% of the profits to the US government in the form of taxes, and secretly gave 5% of the profits to the mayor of New York City. In this way, the US government turned a blind eye to Toby's behavior and let it go. No one could have imagined that such a New York underworld king was a shy boy who was forced to transfer schools because of bullying by school bullies 2 years ago. Unlike China, American high schools are 4-year systems. Therefore, although Marfa is nominally a sophomore, Wanda and Pietro are still in Midtown High School. As graduating students, Wanda and Pietro have been under a lot of pressure from their studies recently, but they are cheating. Compared with China, which pays more attention to student performance, the admission standards of major colleges and universities in the United States are based on the comprehensive quality of students, such as innovation, sports, and artistic talent. With a blessing of superpowers, Pietro, a poor student, has been doing well recently. Just based on sports performance, even if Pietro has no driving ability, his 100-meter speed has easily reached 10 seconds, which is only 2 seconds behind the world record of 9.58 seconds. You know, Pietro is still a high school student. Countless colleges and universities have extended olive branches to him and want to recruit him to school. Even the national team's track and field coach had visited them repeatedly, and the Maximovs were in the limelight. As for Wanda, since she awakened to chaos magic, coupled with a systematic explanation of magic application in the Dark God book, her strength has also improved day by day. The most obvious manifestation is the improvement of Wanda's mental power. With this, Wanda can remember everything she sees. Even if she skips classes like Marfa every other day, her academic performance has improved rapidly. Nowadays, Wanda has long become a role model for other students in Hongchang High School. Those teachers are even more open-minded. Look at Wanda's classmate in the next class. In comparison, Marfa, the child with the best grades in the Maximov family, has become a representative figure of the negative image. It's okay to skip classes all year round, but the most important thing is that even if the teacher visits the home, he can't see anyone. But Marfa must be included in the scholarship quota for each term of the school. For such a mysterious operation, someone initially went to the principal privately. But the principal nodded and smiled on the surface, and the scholarship was still not reduced. Gradually, the teachers at Hongchang High School understood, a person with connections. This is. Can't afford to offend, can't afford to offend. Walking in the campus of Hongchang High School, looking at those students with the word struggle engraved on their faces, rushing to the classroom with various study materials early in the morning, Marfa couldn't help but reveal a strange expression on her face. Work hard, young people, wait until you finish high school and go to college, and find a job after college. Then work hard for 20 or 30 years to pay off the student loans, and then pay off the mortgage after paying off the student loans. Inexplicably, Marfa seemed to feel that she could understand why Flash was so crazy in the past. The life of a capitalist is really so simple and unpretentious. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 183, Breaking the Situation. Just as Marfa was standing there pretending to be cool, a delicate hand patted her shoulder. Hey, busy man, long time no see. Since the other party had no hostility and there was no possibility of hurting Marfa, the spider sense was not activated. This made Marfa startled by the sudden sound and slapping, and the whole person shivered. Haha. Seeing Marfa's panic, Gwen couldn't help laughing. It turned out to be Gwen, so early. Seeing the appearance of the person, Marfa immediately showed an embarrassed look and said, Early? I usually come at this time, but it's rare. A student who skips classes as a daily routine actually came to school so early. The sun didn't even rise from the west today. Gwen blinked her eyes and said playfully. This. Marfa's old face turned red, and he was even more embarrassed. Well, Marfa, I have a question that I have been holding back for a long time. Look. Gwen rubbed her hands and seemed to be hesitant to speak. Thump, thump. Listening to Gwen's words, Marfa felt her heartbeat speed up slightly. In the morning light, her beautiful face looked particularly mosaic. That's right, in Marfa's eyes, Gwen looked like she had mosaics on her face, and she looked a little blurry and blurred. This feeling was something Marfa had never had in her 2 lives. She was a little expectant, but also a little worried. I do. Ahem, I mean, just say it, and I'll listen. Marfa took 2 steps forward and said softly. Does Wanda have any secrets to studying? Her grades have improved so fast recently, and I have been completely left behind by her. Please tell me something. Gwen seemed to have mustered up all her courage and finished speaking in one breath, and then bowed deeply to Marfa. That's it. Marfa felt a strong sense of loss and rubbed his ears in disbelief. Is it okay? Gwen asked seriously. Okay, I'll tell Wanda, you 2 are good friends, I believe she will be happy to help you. After that, Marfa turned around and wanted to leave. What are you thinking? It's too embarrassing. His father's George, starting from 3 years. Oh, that's not right, Gwen is 18 years old. Marfa thought secretly in his heart, but then he quickly reacted and realized that he was not yet 18 years old. This is really a sad story. Slipped away. But before he took a few steps, Gwen's exclamation came from behind him. Marfa turned around subconsciously and saw a huge branch falling down, and Gwen was in the falling range of the branch. Seeing this, Marfa subconsciously waved his hand, and the lavender telekinesis gushed out of his body at this moment. In the blink of an eye, it had hit the branch. It was thrown more than 10 meters away. The huge movement immediately attracted the green plant manager in the distance. He was holding an electric saw in both hands at this time, with a panicked look on his face. Sorry, I'm really sorry. This tree has affected pedestrians. I originally planned to trim it, but after cutting it for a while, I found that it was too strong, So I went to the car to find a chainsaw. I didn't expect it to break by itself. It was my inconsiderateness that I didn't put up a warning sign. The man apologized to the frightened Gwen repeatedly. P.S. Look carefully, there is no typo in lobster this time, it is the word shocked, but when he saw the branch more than 10 meters away, he also showed a puzzled expression. Is this how the Earth's gravity works? But Gwen couldn't care less about the man's apology at this moment, her eyes were full of shock. That was. Yes, I'm not mistaken. It was definitely him. So his shadow. Gwen said with certainty, his eyes fixed on the direction where Marfa left. And Marfa at this moment. He was so excited. I figured it out. I figured it out. I finally figured out a way to defeat the Corpse King and the cave maggots. There's a bug in the legendary world. Any props or attack methods that are not recognized by the system, even if they are judged as effective attacks, will only cause a symbolic 1 point of damage. Marfa has now transformed this bug into an attack method through M134. The M134 rapid-fire machine gun, after being improved by Tony Stark, has a stable rate of 4,000 rounds per minute. In extreme conditions, 6,000 rounds is not a problem. And unlike ordinary rapid-fire machine guns, Tony added unknown black technology to the barrel, so that it will not overheat after shooting for about 10 minutes like ordinary guns. It is precisely relying on this big killer combined with armor-piercing bullets that Marfa can easily single-handedly brush the third floor of the Woma Temple. However, the M134 also has fatal shortcomings. The first is poor accuracy. If it is against the monster ocean like the cave maggots or the third floor of the Woma Temple, it is indeed effective. But if it is against a single individual like the Corpse King, even with a small space portal, it is a bit weak. After all, the weird Corpse King has a full 5,000 blood points. With the output of the M134, even if it stands there and does not move, Marfa will have to fight it for about a minute to kill it face to face. But what if it is replaced with a chainsaw? Just now, when Marfa saw the garden plant manager, this idea suddenly popped up in his mind. Take a 16-inch saw disc as an example. The diameter of the saw disc is about half a meter. If there are 120 teeth on the saw disc, then the saw disc rotates once, which is equivalent to attacking 120 times and causing 120 points of damage. If calculated based on the spindle's 5,000 revolutions per minute, the damage per second is 10,000 points. So terrifying. Causing 10,000 points of damage per second. Just ask, who else is there? In an instant, Marfa seemed to see himself holding a chainsaw, turning into Chainsaw Maniac, slashing all the way from Biki City to Mengzhong, from Mengzhong to Fengmo Valley, and from Fengmo Valley to Malang City. Invincible, invincible. Directly invincible. What soul fire talisman, what sword fire, sword opening the sky, what purple lightning dragon instantly lost its appeal. So now there is only one problem, that is, the wear of the saw disc. The M134 has bullet consumption, and the saw blade must also wear out. Once the teeth are worn flat, there will be no explosive output. If there is any problem, find Tony. Thinking of this, Marfa immediately took a taxi and drove towards the Stark Industrial Building. Stark Industrial Building. Tony Stark was a little panicked at this time, because Pepper and Hill were fighting at the moment. It is said that 3 women make a drama, but who knows that 2 women are not easy. In the spirit of Aquaman, Tony originally did not intend to take Hill into his family. At most, he would just hold her for fun or be a long-term underground lover. But who would have thought that the potion of legendary technology would be so powerful? Not only did it tear the raincoat directly, but it also hit the soul with one shot. Who can I go to for justice? If there was only one Hill, it would be fine, but who would have thought that even Pepper? Now, Tony suddenly changed from a galloping prince to the father of 2 unborn children. Abortion? Impossible. Tony, who had experienced the hesitation between life and death, knew the preciousness of life, not to mention that it was his own flesh and blood. How could Tony allow such a thing as abortion to happen to him? What else can he do? Just accept his fate. Tony, you need to accompany me to the company's high-level meeting at 2 o'clock this afternoon. This is the PPT of the meeting content. Pepper Potts still looked like an office expert and handed a document to Tony. Tony, you promised me to accompany me to buy baby products this afternoon. Maria Hill rolled her eyes at Pepper beside her and looked at Tony with hope. For Tony, Hill gave up her identity as a level 9 agent of SHIELD, gave up her career, gave up her principles, and even did not ask for a name. Hela loved very humbly, without the arrogance of the female agent at the beginning. And what about Pepper? Her feelings for Tony were also very humble. Because of her status as a boss and an employee, she was afraid of the secular vision, and she had always silently paid for Tony without asking for any return. But no matter how they feel about Tony, they both have the same yearning and vision for love. People are selfish, and no one is willing to share their love with others. What's more, this is the United States, a country full of freedom and democracy. So the two women who are extremely excellent in their respective fields started a protracted war of treachery. They are respectful in front of Tony, but they are like soldiers behind Tony. Except for not taking direct action, all kinds of cold violence can be said to be endless. But Tony is not stupid, and with Jarvis watching, how can he not notice the gunpowder smell between the two? If you want to have the blessing of having two people, you must first endure the pain of treachery. Help! Tony Stark shouted in his heart. Chapter 184 Brother Kyang Maximov. Looking at the blue sky and white clouds outside the window, Tony Stark felt like a bird in a cage. That invisible feeling of oppression, that desire for blue sky and white clouds. A life of galloping horses. Ah, Tony. Are you listening to me? The meeting this afternoon. Tony. Where are we going to look at baby products this afternoon? Tony, cough cough. I seem to have come at the wrong time. On the open-air balcony, Marfa slowly lowered her body, watching Tony Stark enjoying double the happiness, and for a moment she felt her stomach was full. Is this the legendary dog food you can eat all you want? Marfa thought secretly in her heart. Marfa. Mr. Maximov. Hill and Pepper said in unison, in different voices. I'm sorry, ladies, to disturb your interest. Can you lend me Tony? I promise to return it in its original state without missing a penny. Marfa said half-jokingly. Of course. X2. The two women said in unison, this time they really said it in unison. In short, it is better to lend Tony to Marfa than to let Tony be with another woman. Yes, both women think so. Tony. Tony, then you can have a good talk with Mr. Maximov, and leave the company's affairs to me. Pepper, who thinks she is the original wife, fully demonstrated the restraint and generosity of a hostess. She bowed slightly to Marfa and left. As the vice president of Stark Industries, Pepper has very sophisticated social experience. She may be able to show off her temper at home, but it doesn't matter what. But in public, Tony's face must be put first. If you can't even do this well, you are not a good wife and mother in Pepper's eyes. As a former level 9 agent, Hill's grasp of people's hearts is naturally not inferior to Pepper. If no one is around, you can do whatever you want, but in front of outsiders, you must maintain restraint, which is the minimum respect for your man. Well, Marfa, you guys can chat slowly. I just happen to have an appointment with Sharon, so I won't bother you anymore. After saying that, Hill also walked towards the elevator. The two women smiled at each other at the elevator entrance and walked into the elevator as if nothing had happened. When the elevator door closed, they looked at each other with disdain, then snorted and turned away. Oh, I really envy you. You are so lucky to have so many wives, Tony. Marfa mocked. Jarvis, let our Mr. Maximov recall the scene of him running away in Times Square. Tony said unyieldingly. Okay, sir. Jarvis tried hard to hold back his laughter and replied, and then projected the scene of Marfa encountering a large group of blind dates in Times Square in front of Marfa. You. Great. I was wondering why it was such a coincidence, it turned out to be you. Marfa said after realizing it belatedly. Oh, how can I do that? You are the one who owed a lot of love debts, and you are being punished. The two women finally left, and Tony felt like he was alive again. He immediately walked to the bar, opened a bottle of Ramani Conti to calm down, and did not forget to retort to Marfa. I am being punished? You are talking about yourself, right? In the whole New York, who can surpass you, Tony Stark, when it comes to Aquaman? Maria should also change her surname to Stark after she follows you, right? What a coincidence, wouldn't she have the same name as your mother? Could it be that you have an Oedipus complex? As soon as the voice fell, the whole room fell into silence. After a moment. Ho-ha-ho-ha. Marfa, really, thank you. Only when I am with you can I feel this kind of return to myself. Very good, really good. Tony said very sincerely, and while speaking, he did not forget to pull open the drawer on the right-hand side, took out a bottle of Pepsi and threw it to Marfa. Marfa took the Coke thrown by Tony and immediately showed a strange look on his face. "No, I said you drink Ramani Conti, but you gave me Pepsi? Isn't that a bit too much?" Marfa pulled a ring of the can and said after taking a sip. "You are not yet 18, I don't have any wine for little kids. No one comes to the temple for no reason. Tell me, what does your boss Maximov want to see me for? You can't just come here to eat dog food, right?" Speaking of business, Marfa immediately sat down opposite Tony with a serious face. "I want you to help me make a chainsaw." Tony, Cyrillic lettered X, "This joke is not funny at all. I am the boss of Stark Industries. You want me to help you build a chainsaw? What do you think I am? A blacksmith? Or a hardware store owner?" Tony said with dissatisfaction. "Is it? Isn't it?" Marfa said meaningfully. "Jarvis, prepare Mark 10 for me. I will teach this bastard a lesson today," Tony said coldly. Marfa, on the other hand, just took out a roll of tissue from his storage backpack and threw it to Tony. "Poisoning." Tony was scared before he finished his words. "Whatever model you want, I will make it right away." What a joke. Tony has not forgotten that Marfa did something very excessive to him last time in order to get the same host as Jarvis. That night. It is still Tony's nightmare. First of all, the speed should be fast, and it is best not to be a crawler type. I prefer a portable saw disc type. The handle should be long and strong. A 16-inch saw disc is the most suitable, and the saw teeth should be 120. The saw teeth should be long and sharp, and most importantly, it should be wear resistant. In terms of power, if you are willing to spend, it is best to use a small arc reactor. As Marfa described, Tony's face became darker and darker, almost catching up with Nick Fury. "It's just a chainsaw, you want to use a small arc reactor to power it? What's the difference between this and using a cannon to kill a mosquito? Can you tell me what you want this thing for? Do you want to change your career to become Baldy Kayang? I've seen that cartoon." Tony took a few gulps of Ramani Conti to calm down, and then spoke. "Baldy Kayang, No, I said can we have a good chat? Do you think you are talking like a human being?" Marfa said a little unhappy. "Then I have to hear if what you say is human. Using a reactor to power a chainsaw, why don't you go to heaven? And what did you just say? It's best to use vibranium to make a saw blade? Did I hear it right? Vibranium is $10,000 per gram, and it's still out of stock. According to what you said, a 16-inch saw blade is about 3 kilograms, which means that even if you can buy it, the price will not be less than $30 million. I'll give you a discount for the reactor, $5 million each. If the other parts are mainly made of gold titanium alloy, $1 million. Oh, my God. A kid wants to spend $36 million to make a chainsaw. You know, with this price, you can buy more than 100 million cans of Pepsi, and then take a Coke bath every day until your bones melt. Tony covered his head and looked at Marfa as if he was looking at a fool. What if the saw blade is made of a mixed alloy of gold titanium alloy and vibranium? 36 million, it's really expensive. Marfa felt that if he wanted to earn the 36 million, he would have to mix it with Wahoo pure water for a long time. How about you come in person? Anyway, I don't have the ability to make the two alloys while maintaining the properties of metals. This thing doesn't say 0.5 plus 0.5 equals 1. Tony shrugged and continued to look at Marfa with an expression like a fool. Damn it. I'm going to risk it. It's just 36 million. I'll go to the import supermarket tonight to buy a few tons of Wahoo pure water and mix it overnight. Zola, transfer $36 million to Tony. Okay, boss. Sir, Mr. Maximov just transferred $36 million to your personal account. Tony, are you serious? Tony was stunned. He thought Marfa was teasing him before, but he never expected that he was serious. What else? The money is in place, when will the goods be delivered? Marfa said unhappily. No, you still have to pay me for the labor. It's not too much to charge you 10 million as a token of friendship. Poison, H.U., poo, asshole. I'm not done with you. H.U., poo, paper, chapter 185 Gwen attacks. A week passed quickly, and Tony Stark also spent an extremely happy time under the aura of Marfa. These days, whether it was Pepper or Hill, they all behaved respectfully in front of Marfa, and treated Tony in every way. It is no exaggeration to say that this was the most glorious moment in Tony's life in terms of women. Are you really going to leave? As a shareholder of legendary technology, I don't need a bite of your food. In front of the Stark Industrial Building, looking at Marfa who was about to leave, Tony rubbed his nose with his fingers, and rubbed the corners of his eyes, and almost said something like, "Don't leave, I need you." "Yes, Mr. Maximov, I haven't thanked you for saving my life." Pepper and his wife followed suit. Hill, who was standing aside, immediately came out to show his presence. "Marfa, after all, we are colleagues. I'm sorry that I didn't treat you well." After saying that, he secretly raised his eyebrows at Pepper. "Marfa, I'm flattered, aren't I? Ahem, I won't bother you anymore. To be honest, I've been eating too much Pepsi and cheeseburgers these past 2 days, and I don't want to cook anymore." As soon as these words came out, Tony, Pepper, and Hill all blushed. One of the three is a super rich man, one is a workplace expert, and the other is a top agent, but as the saying goes, if you are not from the same family, you will not enter the same door. None of the three of them can cook. After eating cheeseburgers for 3 days, Marfa finally couldn't help it and cooked something himself. Then he became the exclusive chef of the three. Finally, Marfa left with a chainsaw worth $36 million. Seeing Marfa's figure walking away, Tony immediately gave a standard happy smile and stepped back a few steps unconsciously. "Tony, we are going to inspect the factory in New Jersey today. Tony, we are going to interview the baby nutritionist today. Marfa, wait a minute, you left something behind." Hearing this, Tony immediately ran in the direction where Marfa left, but was grabbed by the ear by Hill, who was fierce. Pepper was not willing to show weakness, and immediately came over and grabbed Tony's other ear. Amid the spring breeze-like smiles of the two girls, Tony was dragged into the Stark Industrial Building with a bitter face. Time went forward a week. Seeing Marfa's back, Gwen secretly clenched her fists. The majestic image of Skynet, Yellow Spider, and Shadow who saved the entire Midtown High School seemed to appear in front of her again. She didn't know who Skynet was, but if George's attitude towards Marfa was considered, and the ability that Marfa showed when she just saved her, it was already a foregone conclusion in Gwen's opinion that Shadow was Marfa. Good guy, he actually hid it so deeply. Whenever Gwen thought of her best friend Wanda bringing her and Marfa together, she felt her cheeks getting hot. She didn't expect that the person she thought about day and night was actually by her side, and even watched a movie with her. Unlike other girls, Gwen is the daughter of a policeman. George Stacy has always been a well-deserved hero in Gwen's eyes. So compared to those talented young men or those with extraordinary family backgrounds, Gwen likes and admires heroes more. In her eyes, Yellow Spider and Shadow are well-deserved heroes. No, I have to do something. I am Wanda's best friend and Pietro's friend. As a former academic bully, how can I watch them leave me so far behind? That's right, that's it. I must go to Wanda's house today and let her help me with tutoring. After school that day, Gwen did not go to the library to study as usual, but called George directly and said that she was going to her best friend's house and would not go back at night. Then he bought a bunch of fruits and drinks, and drove to Maximov's small villa. This was not the first time Gwen visited the Maximov family, but those were all old apartments in North Brooklyn. This villa was really the first time. Looking around, the villa was not very large or luxurious, but the flowers, plants and trees in the courtyard were arranged in a lively manner. In the pool, you can even see many fish swimming in groups under the lotus leaves. The bluestone paved roads were clean and tidy on both sides, without any fallen leaves on them. Obviously, the owner of the house must have spent a lot of thought. It's worthy of his mother. She can make such a small courtyard so well organized. Gwen sighed in her heart. As the saying goes, a lover's eyes see beauty, and Zishy's eyes see, cough cough cough. At this time, when Gwen looked at the Maximov family, it seemed as if she had a built-in filter, and she liked it no matter how she looked at it. Gwen took out her dressing mirror and looked at it for a while. After making sure that there was nothing wrong with her appearance, she rang the doorbell. Ding dong. Soon, Wanda walked out of the house and came to the yard. Seeing that the person coming was Gwen, Wanda immediately opened her eyes wide and showed an incredible look. You know, Gwen was favored by Osborne Industries because of her excellent academic performance. Not only did they take the initiative to give Gwen a scholarship, but they also provided her with a holiday internship. Because of this, Gwen, who felt stressed, has rarely participated in the gatherings between the sister groups recently. Apart from school, she went to the library, and apart from the library, She went to Osborne Industries. She almost broke every minute into two. Gwen. Oh. God. It's really you. Wanda opened the door and welcomed Gwen in, and then gave her a long-lost hug. I'm sorry to bother you. Can't you invite me in to sit down? Gwen said with a shy smile. You've brought your stuff, so I have to ask you to move it in before I chase you away, right? Wanda said jokingly, looking at the bags behind Gwen. After entering the house, Wanda immediately pulled Gwen to her room. When the two besties meet, they naturally have endless topics to talk about. But gradually, Wanda realized that things were not simple. Her eyes narrowed slightly, and a wicked smile appeared at the corners of her mouth. You are not right, very wrong. From the moment you entered the door, your eyes were erratic and absent-minded, as if you were looking for something. Even after entering my room, you kept looking outside the door. And the topic has been revolving around Marfa. Honestly, are you, he? At this time, Wanda was just about to push the bow on her chest and shout, there is only one truth. Gwen's face immediately blushed when Wanda exposed her thoughts. What are you talking about? Marfa saved me during the day. I just came here to thank him and see if he's injured. In the end, even Gwen herself didn't believe it. A dignified Ying, how could he get hurt just by hitting a branch? Ha ha ha. While joking, Wanda showed a big sister's attitude and stretched out her hand to rub Gwen's butt. Not bad, not bad, big butts give birth to sons. Want to enter my house? Come on, call me sister first. You're looking for death? Being teased by Wanda, Gwen finally couldn't help it and immediately tickled Wanda. And Wanda seemed to have turned into an authentic female hooligan, constantly touching Gwen, and even called it a check for Marfa in advance to see if he had silicone. For a while, there was laughter in the hut, and even bursts of lascivious sounds from time to time. Chapter 186 Worker Ivan Vank. Moscow, in a shabby old-fashioned apartment. The fact is, I am Iron Man. Looking at the old-fashioned color TV in front of him, which was only a dozen inches in size, playing the video in which Tony Stark announced to the media that he was Iron Man, an old man with a gray beard lying on a recliner couldn't help but take a deep breath. Recalling his former glory, the old man couldn't help but sigh. Ivan Vanko, a famous physics doctor in the former Soviet Union, was the most outstanding scientist in the world at that time in the field of electric energy. Even the famous Stark industrial boss, Howard Stark, was inferior to him in this field. For some reason, Ivan Vanko went to the United States to seek political asylum and joined Howard. The two mechanical geniuses hit it off and soon became good friends. They even worked together to develop the giant arc energy reactor that is still placed in the Stark Industrial Building. However, the good times didn't last long. Anton and Howard soon had differences in ideas. Anton hopes to promote the research results and weaponize them as soon as possible to gain more benefits. Howard, on the other hand, believed that the arc reactor technology had surpassed the current overall technological progress and was not suitable for promotion now, let alone its application in weapons. As a result, the two friends turned against each other, and Anton planned to flee with the reactor technology and sell it to other arms dealers. Unexpectedly, Howard had already founded S.H.I.E.L.D. with Peggy Carter and others at that time. With a thunderous wrist of S.H.I.E.L.D., they easily intercepted Anton and brought him to court. In the end, Anton was sentenced to deportation and sent back to the Soviet Union. Now, in the eyes of the Soviet Union, Anton had long been a traitor, so how could they accept him again? As a result, Anton had to live a life of hiding and living in misery. After so many years of poverty, Ivan Vank's health was no longer as good as before, and he could not even get out of bed. I'm sorry, my son, it should have been you, it should have been you. The old man couldn't help crying when he saw Tony dressed brightly and surrounded by beautiful women on TV. However, at this moment, the door of the dilapidated house was pushed open. A middle-aged man with a strong physique and macy hair rushed in excitedly. Father, look, what did I bring back for you? The person who spoke was Ivan Vank's only son, Ivan Vank. After saying that, Ivan unzipped his shirt and took out a thick newspaper. He tore the newspaper layer by layer, and finally, a red potion carefully wrapped inside was revealed. The logo of Legend Technology was engraved on the potion bottle with a laser. This is. Anton opened his eyes with some difficulty and looked at the red potion emitting a faint light in front of him. Then, as if he thought of something, he suddenly opened his eyes wide and showed an unbelievable look. Where did you get this thing? Although Anton had been paralyzed in bed for a long time, Ivan would tell Anton what he saw and heard on the black market every day, so Anton recognized what the potion in front of him was at a glance. I made some toys for this. Ivan felt distressed when he saw his father. Since he was a child, Ivan had never enjoyed happiness with his father. He was poor, hungry, cold, and down and out. But as long as there was a bite to eat, Anton would definitely give him priority, treating him as a treasure given by God. Gradually, Ivan also discovered that his father was not simple. His erudition and wisdom did not make him look like an ordinary beggar. Until he was 10 years old, Anton taught Ivan everything. That was his lifelong knowledge and experience. Ivan was indescribably grateful to his old man. If the old man was not still alive and needed someone to take care of him, Ivan would have rushed to Stark Industries with a machine gun and started shooting small toys. Anton frowned when he heard this. That's right, it's just 2 plasma cannon launchers, nothing more. You should drink this medicine quickly, maybe you can hold on for a few more months. I don't have money to buy you an urn, Ivan said in a calm tone. A small toy? You think the plasma cannon is a small toy? Anton vanked. Anton is very satisfied with his son. Not only has he inherited all his knowledge, but he has also perfectly inherited the old Versailles character. He is worthy of being my son, Anton thought secretly in his heart. He did not hesitate anymore, and with the help of Ivan, he opened the bottle cap of the potion and poured it into his mouth. As the fiery red liquid entered his mouth, Anton immediately felt a surge of warmth in his body. Then a tingling sensation spread through his limbs and even his internal organs. Instantly, Anton's eyes became moist. How many years have passed? How many years have I not felt this way? Over the years, except for his right hand, which could still move with difficulty, Anton's body has long been numb. P.S. Don't ask why the lobster only has the right hand left. How can an old widower live without you, father? How do you feel? Ivan asked with some trepidation in his heart. Feeling? Oh. I'll hiss. Nothing. The medicine is good, but you'd better not sell your toys on the black market anymore, so as not to cause unnecessary trouble, Anton said with a somewhat lonely look in his eyes. Fate, this is fate. Anton believes that as long as there are enough medicines, he can recover his health and even stand up again, but is it possible? To put it bluntly, legendary technology is dedicated to serving those top rich people. Each medicine is sky high on the black market. It is not something that people like him can afford at all. Looking at the TV screen, Tony Stark's relaxed look, Anton Vank hated it. It's okay for him to be in poverty, but his son, Ivan, is so outstanding, but he can only suffer with him. How could Ivan, who was standing aside, not hear the implication of Anton's words? In short, medicine is useful, but money is hard to come by. Damn, is there really no way? As long as you give me enough medicine, even if Ivan risk my life, what does it matter? Thinking of this, Ivan couldn't help but secretly clench his fists. Hey, wait, legendary technology, aren't they working on online games? With my ability. Thinking of this, Ivan immediately walked to the studio, wrapped some of the toys on the table with black cloth, and then hurriedly ran towards the black market. Working man, working soul, Ivan Vanko, I'm going to New York to be the best game development engineer in the world. Tony Stark, just wait, as long as I join, one day, legendary technology will definitely surpass your Stark Industries and acquire you. Ivan is still very confident in his own abilities. If he and Anton hadn't been on Russia's blacklist, they wouldn't have ended up like this. Then the first step is to smuggle. I heard that the Spider Gang often has smuggling ships coming to Moscow recently. It seems that I have to think about it carefully. Chapter 187 Chainsaw Maniac. Bitch mine. Coming to this ghost place where he had been beaten to the point of using a scroll to return to the city, Marfa's mentality was completely different. Hey, you bastard, and that fat guy, are you ready? Here comes the Chainsaw Maniac. After saying that, Marfa immediately took out a chainsaw that Tony Stark had made for him from his storage backpack. This chainsaw is 1.6 meters long and weighs 50 kilograms. It is equipped with a small arc energy reactor specially made by Tony for friendship. The overall shape is like a double-edged giant sword in a Western fantasy novel. The sword body is made of gold titanium alloy, and the blade is extremely sharp, cutting hair with a single blow. The tip of the sword is a circular saw disc with a diameter of about half a meter, made entirely of vibranium, with 120 teeth on it. As long as you press the switch on the hilt, The saw disc will rotate at a speed of about 150 revolutions per second. At the sword guard, Tony also specially installed an additional pulse cannon launcher, which greatly increased the attack distance of the chainsaw. Of course, what satisfied Marfa the most was the arc reactor at the junction of the sword stem and the blade. There was no other reason. It was bright. It integrated a style of science and technology with a style of martial arts. In short, it was just one word: handsome. Of course, the premise of all this was that the three words Bald Kayang engraved on the sword must be ignored. This is the name Tony gave this weapon. The most important thing is that it is embossed and can't be wiped off. Walking into the beach mine and walking along the passage for a while, soon, a monk-robed zombie came out from the ground. Oh. I saw him raise his hands horizontally, facing Marfa, stomping his feet, and walking towards Marfa swayingly. "Little guy, call you uncle. I'm a chainsaw maniac today." After that, Marfa immediately raised Bald Kayang and aimed at the monk-robed zombie and pulled the trigger. Swoosh! With a flash of strong light, the pulse cannon shot out from Bald Kayang's sword guard. Wrapped in a powerful energy, it shot at the monk-robed zombie. 1. As a bright red number floated over the monk-robed zombie's head, Marfa couldn't help but twitch his mouth, revealing an embarrassed look. That's right, according to the setting of legend, if the attack method or props not recognized by the system are judged to be effective, the damage to the monster will be calculated as a symbolic 1 point. If it is an attack like throwing a handful of sand, it will be judged to be invalid and no damage will be calculated. Is it true? The lethality of the pulse cannon in reality is completely incomparable to that of a mere chainsaw, but in the game world, this thing has no other use except scratching an itch. "Tony, you wasted my money." Without too much entanglement with the problem of the pulse cannon, Marfa immediately walked close to the monk-robed zombie, turned on the chainsaw switch, and directly smashed the bald head in his hand at the monk-robed zombie. 1, -1, -1, -1, -1. In an instant, hundreds of bright red numbers floated over the monk-robed zombie's head like a swarm of bees. The health bar of the monk-robed zombie was directly cleared, and it fell to the ground with full reluctance after leaving only a bottle of potion on the ground. Until it fell to the ground, the monk-robed zombie still stared at its pupil-less eyes, as if saying "You're the one who got it," and as if accusing this as a cheater. Awesome, so awesome. This is the effect I want. As expected of a bald man worth 36 million US, cough cough, chainsaw. At this time, Marfa looked at the chainsaw in front of him as if he was looking at his girlfriend, with his eyes full of obsession. P.S. Proof question, because chainsaw equals girlfriend, chainsaw equals Bald Kayang, and because girlfriend equals Gwen, so Gwen equals Bald Kayang. Proof completed, cutting melons and vegetables all the way, killing whoever he saw in seconds. Marfa only felt that he had reached the peak of his life directly, and even had a faint urge to compete with the big knife guard. As we all know, in the legendary game, the city guards are mainly divided into 4 types: demon archers, archer guards, broadsword guards and sword-carrying Jinai guards. These guards can prevent monsters from entering the city, and once they find a red name player, they will attack him. The first 2, as long as the level is higher, warriors and Taoist priests can easily kill them. As for the broadsword guards and sword-carrying Jinai guards, as far as Marfa knows, no one has been able to kill them so far. 50,000 blood points, ridiculously high magic defense and physical defense, and the blood recovery speed that can only be described as terrifying. Marfa once thought about it. You said that the ancient demons and ancient demon gods on the Marfa continent are coming one day at a time. Is it difficult to send a few broadsword guards to push their nests? Let's get back to the point. With the help of the teleportation ring, Marfa soon came to the corner where he encountered the giant cave maggots before. Hiss, hiss, hiss. Before turning the corner, the special hissing sound of the giant cave maggot reached Marfa's ears. "You little brat, aren't you? You were so arrogant before, but now you're going to be chopped into a pool of protein by me." Marfa raised the corner of his mouth slightly, and immediately rushed over the corner in 2 steps. Hiss. Seeing Marfa appear again, the giant cave maggot immediately started cursing. However, unlike last time, perhaps because of the short refresh time, or perhaps for other reasons. In short, this time the cave maggot's little brothers are more than 90% less than before. Looking at the small cave maggots, the coldness in Marfa's eyes became even stronger. "I'll give you a chance, get out of here now, and every time I come, Sacrifice a group of your minions to me. Otherwise, humph. As he said that, Marfa raised the bald Kayang in his hand and turned on the electric saw. Squeak. The saw disc on the top of bald Kayang rotated at high speed, making a series of sharp roars. The surrounding airflow was stirred up by it, and the breeze blew like an electric fan, which was cool. Yes, it was cool, not only the breeze, but also the back of the giant cave maggot. Run, run. Find the big brother. At this moment, the giant cave maggot had only this thought in his mind. Are you kidding? What's the point of fighting alone? Didn't you see that the guy in front of him knocked down all his minions last time? Hiss. Hiss. Damn bald, come out. The giant cave maggot turned around and ran without saying a word, hating his parents for not growing his legs longer. Just ran away? Sure enough, there are problems with this guy and the Corpse King. How can the monster in the legend have such a high IQ? Marfa thought so in his heart, but he didn't mean to chase after him. Although there were fewer small cave maggots left at this time than before, it must be said that they were still in huge numbers. If they rushed over rashly, they might get poisoned by paralysis, and they would be in trouble. Steady. Steady. Anyway, with bald Kayang here, Marfa was not in a hurry. Immediately, Marfa replaced bald Kayang and took out the Wuji stick from the storage backpack again. Soulfire Talisman. Soulfire Talisman. Dot. Boom. The mine was shaking in the explosions of the Soulfire Talisman, and the rubble attached to the rock wall of the mine kept falling. The doomsday scene scared the giant cave maggot in the distance so much that its heart was thumping. Damn it. This is a devil. My new recruits. You must hold on. Huh? Thinking of this in his heart, the giant cave maggot's pace could not help but speed up a bit. Finally, after seeing the monk-robed zombie coming out of the ground, the giant cave maggot immediately bent its body and knocked the monk-robed zombie aside like a spring, and then without saying a word, it quickly got into the small hole leading to the Corpse King's palace. Boss. After landing, the giant cave maggot saw the Corpse King squatting in the corner and shaking constantly. 2 lines of tears immediately burst out of its small eyes. It looked so wronged. Chapter 188, A Near Miss. Boom. Boom. The explosions of the Soulfire Talisman echoed in the mine. Looking at his rapidly rising experience bar, Marfa felt that maggots could be so cute. Of course, the most important thing is that after these 2 waves of killing insects, the maggot eggs in Marfa's backpack have become too many. Fortunately, the system has changed the maggot eggs to be stackable, otherwise there would be no way to fit so many in the backpack. Maggot eggs are one of the main materials for Marfa to make poison spells. As far as the current inventory is concerned, it is basically enough for Marfa to use for a very, very, very long time. With a flash of golden light, Marfa felt warm all over, and his health bar and mana were instantly restored. Not bad, it's upgraded. Character, Marfa. Occupation, Taoist. Level 29, Defense 8-12, Magic Defense 6-14, Attack 11-32, Magic 0-1, Taoist 9-40, Physical Value, Blood 227/227, Magic Value, Blue 244/244, Skills, Group Invisibility Level 3, Holy Armor Level 3, Expand, Special Skills, Expand, Equipment, Expand, Special Ring, Teleport Ring, not equipped. The current remaining game time is 4,600 minutes. Looking at his attribute panel, Marfa was speechless. This Nima actually added a new expand button. How can I water the word count in the future? After a brief complaint, Marfa picked up the monster's drops and chased in the direction where the giant cave maggot left. Soon, a hole the size of a person appeared in front of Marfa, and standing next to the hole was the monk-robed zombie that was previously pushed away by the giant cave maggot. Monk-robed zombie, oh degree, I'll go to hell. Marfa showed no mercy and hit it with a stick, knocking it away again. There was no way. It was not that Marfa could not beat it, but this thing was like a key. If this zombie died, God knows where the other monk-robed zombie that could open the Corpse King's palace would refresh. Jumping down from the hole, Marfa went straight to the Corpse King's palace with his eyes black. But before he could react, -80, -76, -30. 3 bright red numbers floated over his head, and Marfa's health was only 41 points. -28. Well, this time it's 13 points. There is no doubt that the first 2 high damages were caused by the Corpse King, while 30 and 28 were caused by the white dead fat man spraying venom at Marfa. Fortunately, the paralysis effect was not triggered, otherwise Marfa would have died here. Fuck. A sneak attack. You two bastards have no martial ethics. At the critical moment, Marfa immediately drank 2 bottles of powerful solar water, and then cast a healing spell on himself to fill up his health again. This sudden attack really scared Marfa into cold sweat. Hiss. Come on, hiss. Come on, hiss 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 hiss. If you come, I will let you out. The giant cave maggot twisted its unsightly waist and made crazy faces at Marfa. With the support of the Corpse King, the giant cave maggot was not afraid of any waves that Marfa could stir up. In short, it was fearless. However, the next second, the roar of the chainsaw resounded throughout the Corpse King's palace. Squeak. As an amulet exploded above Marfa's head, a huge word defense formed entirely of red energy suddenly appeared above Marfa's head. Then the word defense turned into starlight and fell on Marfa, causing the whole person to faintly reveal a little red light. This is exactly the auxiliary skill of the Taoist priest in the legend, the holy armor technique. Then, Marfa immediately stopped his fast-moving figure and immediately concentrated on communicating with the space node. 1 second, just 1 second. 2 lavender halos appeared beside Marfa and the Corpse King respectively. Without moving to dodge, Marfa immediately became a living target of the Corpse King. The 2 chains wrapped around his hands suddenly sprang out of the ground like 2 poisonous snakes and whipped Marfa. 60-55. However, this time, Marfa was not as anxious to restore his blood as before. He just put the chainsaw directly into the space door. 1, -1, -1, -1, -1, -1, -1. A long string of bright red numbers floated over the head of the Corpse King. Every time the saw disc made of vibranium rotates, it will take away 120 points of blood from the Corpse King. The Corpse King only has 5,000 points of blood. In other words, it only needs the saw disc to rotate 42 times to reap the life of the Corpse King. But in fact, the average speed of Wald Kayang's saw disc can reach 150 revolutions per second. After 1/3 of a second, plop. The corpse of the Corpse King fell heavily to the ground, lifeless. This time it has completely become a real Corpse King. Awesome. Looking at the scene in front of him, the long-suppressed resentment in Marfa's heart immediately broke out, and he couldn't help shouting. What is a second kill? This is called a second kill. No, to be precise, it's a 1/3 second kill. I am the strongest brother in society. Unlike Marfa's excitement, the giant cave maggot on the side was scared silly. This person, no, it should be said that the whole insect began to shiver unconsciously. The boss is dead, killed by the demon in front of him in less than a second. What to do? The baby is very scared now. Trembling. Run. Aren't you good at running? Keep going. Where are your minions? Where is your boss? With each word Marfa said, his footsteps moved closer to the giant cave maggot. As if feeling that the atmosphere was not enough, Marfa immediately summoned Xiaobei. So, 1 man and 1 skeleton slowly walked towards the cave maggot with bad intentions. Caracalla. Xiaobei waved the axe with a terrifying expression on his face. Sizzle. The sound of electric saws ravaged the entire Corpse King palace. The expression on Marfa's face was even more terrible than that of Xiaobei. Extreme joy brings sorrow. Extreme joy brings sorrow. A minute ago, the giant cave maggot was still twisting its fat body and mocking Marfa. A minute later, the giant cave maggot kept wriggling its body backwards. Hiss. Hiss. Let me go, hiss, hiss 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 hiss. Let me go, and I'll let you out. Unfortunately, Marfa couldn't understand the giant cave maggot's begging for mercy. Even if he understood, wouldn't the more the other party begged for mercy, the more excited Marfa would be? Go to hell. As Bold Kayang left a residual image in the air, the cave maggot immediately changed from its previous straight body to limp dead maggot. Huh? Marfa breathed a sigh of relief. He finally solved the 2 troubles. It was a close call. Taking out the demon-slaying sword that he had abandoned from his backpack, Marfa inserted the blade into the body of the cave maggot and poked it. After a while, a crystal white ring with a sapphire inlaid on it flowed out of the cave maggot's body along with the body fluids of the cave maggot. Chapter 189 Skill Wholesale. Paralysis Ring Durability. 3/5, Required Level. 16, WTF, WTF, WTF. After picking up the ring on the ground and taking a closer look, even an old legend player like Marfa couldn't help but say WTF 3 times in a row. Shocked, so shocked. I've heard that cave maggots have a chance to dig out paralysis rings, but after playing Legend for so many years, Marfa has killed countless cave maggots, but has never had the chance to really dig out a paralysis ring. As a special ring with a pitifully low drop rate, the paralysis ring is one of the top equipment in Legend. No matter how the version changes, no matter how awesome the attributes of the new equipment are, the paralysis ring always occupies a place among the top equipment. Like the teleportation ring that Marfa already has, the paralysis ring itself does not have any attributes. The reason why it is hyped as a top equipment is mainly because the paralysis ring has a hidden function. When a character wearing a paralysis ring attacks the target physically, there is a 1/15 chance that the target will be paralyzed for 5 seconds. In the paralysis state, the target cannot move, and the whole person is like petrified and at the mercy of others. If it is combined with high burst skills such as the warrior's fiery swordsmanship, it is simply a supreme artifact for robbing and looting. It stands to reason that probabilistic equipment such as the paralysis ring can only be maximized in the hands of a speed-type superpower like Pietro. Imagine that in the battle, Pietro comes up with a tortoise punch. It doesn't matter how much damage he outputs, as long as it is fast enough and the frequency is high enough. In theory, Pietro can fight anyone until the end of time. If there is someone who can cooperate with Pietro to stab the target at this time. However, it is a pity that the paralysis ring has a level requirement. Any equipment with a level requirement cannot be used by anyone except Marfa. That's why Marfa chose equipment that only required attributes when giving it to Natalia and Wanda. But can this stump Marfa? As long as he puts on the paralysis ring and lets Pietro carry him as a weapon, wouldn't it be possible to maximize the effect of the paralysis ring? Can you believe the combination? I'm really smart, Marfa thought. Brave adventurer. Suddenly, a voice mixed with a hint of chill sounded behind him, and the extremely cold feeling frightened Marfa and made him shiver. Swoosh! The soulfire talisman was thrown out immediately, but it went straight through the figure. Boom! The soulfire talisman exploded directly on the stone wall behind the figure, and for a moment, the flame splashed, illuminating the entire Corpse King Hall. Marfa took this opportunity to look at the figure who had just called him. This was a middle-aged man with a particularly eye-catching black hair. After all, except for Liu Mengli, who had a blind date, Marfa rarely saw this familiar hair color. His facial features were quite regular, but his eyes were full of sadness, and one could tell at a glance that this was an NPC with a story. Wait a minute, adventurer, I have no ill intentions. After saying that, in order to prove what he said, the figure took 2 steps back. But Marfa clearly saw that his legs actually passed through the corpse of the Corpse King. A ghost? A half-real existence. Thinking this in his mind, Marfa suddenly seemed to have thought of something, and immediately took out the portrait of his father that the daughter of the clothing store owner had given him from his storage backpack. Isn't this the person in front of him? You are. Marfa couldn't believe his eyes. After all, the little girl only said that his father disappeared in the mine, but didn't say that he became a Corpse King. Alice. I was the owner of a clothing store in Becky City. I ran a shop with my wife and the business was pretty good. A few months ago, it was my daughter's birthday, and I wanted to come to the mine to dig some ore and sew a golden jade dress for her, but I didn't expect. After saying that, the man paused, and the sadness on his body became even heavier. I was killed because of the zombie attack. I was accidentally infected. I was worried that if I went back, I might hurt my wife and daughter, so I could only hide in the mine for the rest of my life. Thanks to a very spiritual cave maggot, it not only accompanied me when I was most desperate, but also provided me with a lot of food. The man slowly told his past, and Marfa simply sat down on the spot, ready to eat some melon. Until one day, I and the cave maggot accidentally discovered this place. At that time, I was very weak, and I was swarmed by dozens of Corpse Kings in the Corpse King Palace. I had no strength to resist. Fortunately, the cave maggots attracted a large number of small cave maggots and controlled those Corpse Kings with toxins. When I woke up, my body had completely completed the corpse transformation. The desire to kill devoured my remaining reason, so I ate all the Corpse Kings in the Corpse King Palace. At this point, the man still showed a look of fear. Adventurer, didn't you bring back the news that I was dead? By the way, Tell her for me that I am sorry for her and let her find a good family to marry. Marfa. Did you encounter a task chain? I didn't expect there would be a follow-up. I'm afraid not. People are orphans and widows, how pitiful. Now at least there's hope. If I tell them, they will be so sad. Marfa resolutely does not do things that have no benefits. If it weren't for the scourge in front of him, dozens of corpse kings. It didn't give him some good things. Man. Adventurer, I see you are dressed like a Taoist priest. The man said. Yes. Marfa nodded. When I ate those corpse kings, I found some things on them. I think you can use them. I am a dead man now. There is no point in keeping them. If you can help me, I can give them to you as a reward. After that, the man waved his hand and several thick skilled books appeared in his hand. Kicking wave, Taoist secret book required level 29, a kind of Taoist practice that can push away the monsters around and protect oneself. Group healing, Taoist secret book required level 33, release mental power to restore physical strength for friendly targets within the range. Summoning a beast, Taoist secret book required level 35, use amulets to summon a powerful beast as your follower. Wuji's Henki, Taoist secret book required level 36, use natural true ki to trigger the potential in the body and instantly double your mental power. Summoning moon spirit, Taoist secret book required level 45, gather the spiritual energy of all things in the world, exert the limit of mental power, and summon the moon spirit to fight for you. Blood-sucking technique, Taoist secret book required level 47, drive the amulet to absorb the target's life. I'm not. This is a wholesale of skills. At this time, the man fell into Marfa's eyes, like that sloppy beggar, who would take out a thick stack of skilled books at any time, and said to everyone he met, young man, I see that you are amazing, and you are a martial arts genius among 10,000. A full 6 skill books, it can be said that it is a one-step approach, directly including all the Taoist skills that Marfa has not yet learned. The most important thing is that these 6 skilled books are all rare drops. For a time, Marfa actually doubted the man in front of him. It was not that he killed dozens of corpse kings, but that he had killed all the ancestors of the corpse kings for 18 generations. I can't afford to offend you, I can't afford to offend you. Thinking this in his heart, Marfa's face immediately showed a compassionate expression. As adventurers, we are committed to saving people from suffering. We shout when we see injustice and take action when it is time to do so. We are quick and hasty, ahem. What I mean is that I promise you. Marfa said without blushing or panting, not noticing that his hands had been trembling unconsciously as he stretched them forward. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 190 Meet the Parents? Coming out of the big city clothing store, Marfa felt refreshed, so refreshed that every cell in her body was cheering. The green hat had long disappeared, replaced by a headband. Although it was still green, it was no longer as uncomfortable as the green hat before. Looking closely, the headband was embroidered with countless mysterious patterns, and unknown metal threads were woven on it, making it look not only gorgeous and majestic, but also faintly mysterious. The headband was inlaid with dozens of sesame-sized rubies. I think the pretty little widow in the clothing store must have taken the gems from the prior helmet and broken them up and embedded them. If the logo was printed on this headband, Marfa had no doubt that someone would definitely think it was a new fashion model from a luxury brand. Little Widow's hint durability. 5/5, defense. 3-4, magic defense. 1-3, attack. 0 and 3, Taoism. 0-5, blessing effect, can absorb and inherit the power of special equipment or accessories. 0/3, required level 18. P.S. Don't ask why the lobster is called Little Widow's hint, and don't ask why it is still green. In terms of attributes, Little Widow's hint is no different from the prior helmet, but as the little girl said, it has obtained the blessing effect. Absorb and inherit the power of 3 special equipment or accessories. Thinking of this, Marfa immediately put Little Widow's hint and the paralysis ring together. Sure enough, a message prompt bar popped up in front of Marfa asking whether to absorb the paralysis ring. Of course, it can't be absorbed. Marfa immediately chose no. The paralysis ring is very useful. How can it be wasted in such a place? The triggering premise of the paralysis ring is physical attack. Do you still expect Marfa to give up the skill and fight the enemy in the future? On the other side, in the small villa of the Maximov family. These days, Gwen has become a frequent visitor to the Maximov family. Gwen can be seen here almost every day. Under the pretext of asking Wanda to tutor her, everyone, including the Maximovs, knows what the reason is. Marfa has been different from ordinary people since he was a child. When other children were still playing, he had already started studying hard. When other children started studying hard, he already had his own career. With Marfa's wealth and strength, it is not a bad idea to consider his lifelong event earlier. Moreover, after contacting her for the past few days, the two elders are very satisfied with Gwen. She is well educated, gentle and virtuous, and her appearance is impeccable. She has even won unanimous praise from many doctors in the project research of Osborne Industries. She can go to the hall, go to the kitchen, do research, and shout, cough cough. The only thing that worries the two is the specialness of their family, especially Natalia. He doesn't want his childhood experience to be repeated in Marfa. But what she didn't know was that this was exactly what Gwen liked most about Marfa. There are 1,000 Hamlets in the eyes of 1,000 people. Because of her childhood experience, Natalia had a strong rejection and fear of superpowers, but in Gwen's eyes, this was like a gift from God. Marfa's bravery in saving the entire Midtown High School from fire, and his heroic figure in waving his hand to hide a huge branch for more than 10 meters, had long been deeply imprinted in Gwen's heart. Whether it was admiration or infatuation, in Gwen's eyes, there were only two types of men, Marfa and others. "Hi. I'm back." The greeting sounded, and Marfa's figure pushed the door open. But when he saw the people in the house who were preparing meals, Marfa frowned. "Sorry, I went to the wrong house." After saying that, Marfa immediately took 2 steps back with an apologetic look on his face and carefully closed the door. But after a few seconds, the door was opened again. "No, this is my house." But as soon as he finished speaking, he saw Gwen looking at him with a smile on her face. "You haven't been home for a few days, don't you recognize your own home?" Gwen smiled like a flower, like a beam of warm sunlight shining directly on Marfa, making him look embarrassed. "I'm so sorry, I didn't expect you to. In fact, it's not Marfa's fault. Under normal circumstances, no guest would prepare meals for the host. That's why Marfa thought he walked into the wrong house. I can't help it. You promised me to find Wanda to help me with tutoring. I'm afraid you have forgotten it a long time ago," Gwen said with a look of blame. "Haha, ha ha ha, ha 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 ha. Oh, the weather is really good today." Marfa scratched his head and looked at the window with the curtains drawn. But at this moment, ding-dong, the doorbell rang. Marfa looked at Django, who was reading a newspaper on the sofa, Wanda and Pietro, who were watching a black and white sitcom, and Natalia, who was preparing dinner like Gwen, and couldn't help wondering, who else? "I haven't been home for a few days, why is it so lively?" But when Marfa opened the door and saw George Stacy's face as black as ink, she couldn't help but shudder. Crack, crack. George Stacy's face was gloomy at this time, and his hands were clenched too tightly, causing the knuckles to make a constant crackling sound. What did he see? George Stacy even doubted his eyes. The cabbage that he had worked so hard to grow hadn't been home for several days. Although Gwen told him that she was going to her bestie's house for tutoring, she wouldn't stay away from home for several days in a row. In a vague way, George was not obsessed with his daughter. After all, his daughter had grown up and was already 18 years old, so it was completely acceptable for her to have a relationship. But George was still a little worried because she hadn't returned home all night for several days. So he used his position to find Gwen's whereabouts. It would have been fine if he hadn't checked. After checking, he found that his little cabbage actually ran to the Maximov family all day long. How could this be? George didn't forget that more than a year ago, if he hadn't broke up the couple, his little cabbage might have been taken away. So George immediately drove to the Maximov family's residence without stopping. Unexpectedly, what he saw when he opened the door was Gwen, who was like a housewife, preparing meals for others. It was so infuriating, so infuriating. You know, George had never eaten Gwen's cooking since he was a child. The daughter he had raised for more than 10 years just became someone else's family inexplicably. Even he was completely kept in the dark. At this time, looking at Marfa, who was embarrassed, George felt that this guy was guilty. Dad? Gwen seemed to realize that something was wrong and shouted out weakly. Upon hearing this, Django, who was sitting on the sofa reading a newspaper, was the first to react. Hey, father-in-law. Come on, come in and sit down, let's have a drink together. Django said enthusiastically. Although his son hadn't expressed his opinion yet, Django was very satisfied with Gwen and had long regarded her as his designated daughter-in-law. Therefore, he subconsciously shouted out the words father-in-law. It's confirmed, it's confirmed. His little cabbage was really taken away. For a moment, George felt as if the anger in his stomach was added with several tons of gasoline, and it kept rising. Is this how you tutor? He opened his mouth slightly and squeezed out these few words from his teeth. His bloodshot eyes stared at Marfa, as if waiting for his explanation. Looking at the 308.4 million people in the United States, you can't find anyone else but this monster family. Their family is full of freaks. If it really happens, what if they are implicated in the future? Even if they are not implicated, there are always people better than you. What if their daughter becomes a widower at a young age? I don't agree, absolutely not. George Stacy thought firmly in his heart. Chapter 191 An Unexpected Surprise. Legendary Technology, as its name suggests, is a legendary company in everyone's eyes. It rose in just 1 year and claimed to be a virtual reality online game. However, before the game was launched, it had already become a company that many chaebols could not afford to fend. Not only in terms of the company's market value and business operations, but also in the eyes of many New York locals, the employees of Legendary Technology are extremely mysterious. No one knows the recruitment standards and recruitment channels of Legendary Technology, and few people know how many employees Legendary Technology has. Even the employees of Legendary Technology do not know who their boss is. On this day, a ragged and shaggy man walked into the Legendary Technology building. The man had a rebellious look on his face, as if others owed him hundreds of millions, and showed a unified expression to everyone around him, contempt. The man was holding a bottle of vodka in one hand, a rag bag in the other, and a toothpick in his mouth, and walked to the front desk of the company with a step that did not recognize any relatives. There is no doubt that this person is Ivan Vanko, who smuggled from Moscow. I want to see your boss, Ivan said arrogantly. Seeing this, 3 or 5 security guards immediately came behind the front desk, waiting for the front desk's order to throw the sloppy man out. You know, since Legendary Technology became famous, people have come here every day to make trouble. Among them, there are many graduates from prestigious universities who think they are prodigies of heaven. Of course, there are also some corporate project leaders who come to discuss cooperation. In short, there are all kinds of people, which can be said to be a reflection of the world. The only difference from Ivan is that people who came here in the past were all dressed in suits and leather shoes, like successful people. It was the first time that Ivan, who looked like a wanderer, came here. Hello, sir, do you have an appointment? The receptionist was very cultured. She did not show a look of disgust because of Ivan's dress. Instead, she showed a standard smile and followed the work process. Appointment? I don't have one, Ivan said impatiently. Then who did you contact before? The receptionist continued to follow the process. No. Ivan poured a mouthful of vodka into his mouth and said vaguely. Then I'm sorry, please forgive us for not being able to receive you for the time being. You can leave your contact information and the purpose of this trip here. I will report to the leader and make an appointment with you at that time. After that, the receptionist handed a form to Ivan. Ivan took the form and glanced at it, and crumpled it into a ball of paper. I want to see your boss, not that shit a leader. Ivan threw the paper ball back to the front desk and said angrily. What a joke. Ivan is a nobleman of Legend Technology and the future chief technician. He can accept that the boss didn't come to greet him. After all, the boss didn't know he was coming, but he came in person, and the boss still treated him like this. Ivan couldn't accept it. Russians are also known as the fighting nation, and their character is originally heroic and casual. What's more, Ivan and Anton are on the Russian blacklist. Ivan has never been in contact with the upper class, so he naturally doesn't care about red tape. If you have something to say, just say it. If you have something to say, just let it go. Everything is based on strength. This is Ivan's creed. Meng's mother moved 3 times just to give her children a good learning and living environment. The environment makes people, and it is not just a saying. When Ivan was in Moscow, he usually dealt with mostly black market people or gangsters. Naturally, His words and deeds were a bit ruffian. People with great talents are not particular about details. Martin Luther, the great religious reformer, liked to eat his own shit. G.Z. Allen, a talented scholar in the Qing dynasty, was obsessed with food and sex. The famous Churchill liked to be naked in his office. Cao Meng, a treacherous hero, loved other people's wives. There are countless examples of such people in history. And Ivan Vanko is the same. The defects in his character cannot erase his achievements in scientific research. Unlike Tony Stark, a top student who graduated from MIT, Ivan Vanko hardly went to school. He was born in war, grew up in poverty, and associated with gangsters and black market profiteers. The only people who could give him knowledge and insights were his father and Vanko and the old TV at home that had been used for decades. However, even in such harsh conditions, in the original plot, Ivan still relied on his knowledge to build a small arc reactor that was exactly the same as Tony's, and like Tony, he relied on a pile of scrap copper and iron to achieve the name of whip rope. Such a character naturally has some of his arrogance. Seeing that he was devoted to the other party, but the other party treated him like a worn-out shoe, Ivan couldn't help but feel a strong resentment in his heart. Okay, you are awesome. Look, I destroyed your entire network system, what can you do to me? Thinking of this, Ivan no longer hesitated, angrily threw the empty vodka bottle on the ground, turned around and walked away. Time passed quickly, and 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. On this day, Marfa was lying in his small villa, preparing to enter the legendary world to level up, but Zola's voice came from his mobile phone. Master, the company's network has been attacked. Oh. Marfa said indifferently. This kind of thing happens every day. There are always some people who think they have great hacking skills and want to hack into the network to obtain the formula of the potion of legendary technology. But let's not talk about the potion of legendary technology. They are all various potions that Marfa brought out from the legendary world, and they are the product of Wahoho pure water. There is no so-called formula at all. Even if there is, with Zora in charge, who can hack into legendary technology? Even Jarvis from the dog family can't do it. No, Marfa soon found out that something was wrong. If it was really the same as before, those small characters who didn't make it, Zora would not report it to him at all, and he would solve it silently. Since he can attract Zora's attention, he must be a great person. Immediately, Marfa lost the interest in leveling up, and sat up from the bed, and immediately became energetic. Did you find the other party's address? Marfa asked. I found it, it's Stark Industries. Zora answered truthfully. Interesting. Marfa whispered softly. You have to know that Tony is a shareholder of legendary technology, and Marfa has clearly told Tony that the potion is the product of his own ability and there is no formula. So will Tony still invade the network of legendary technology? Obviously impossible. Even if Tony Stark wants to turn the tables with Marfa, he shouldn't do it now when there is no reason at all. Zora continued, you should have investigated everything clearly. Marfa said confidently. Marfa has never doubted Zora's strength. I just contacted Jarvis. It confirmed that someone threw a miniature signal transmitter into the ventilation duct of Stark Industrial Building through checking the internal network ports and signal sources of Stark Industrial Building. We counter-invaded along the signal transmitter and found that the other party's real location is in a black internet cafe on the street next to legendary technology. Zora's strength is not to be underestimated. If it weren't for Jarvis sitting in the Stark Industrial Building, Zora could easily find the mastermind behind the scenes. You are worthy of it. Have you investigated the identity of the intruder? Marfa continued to ask. It is precisely because of the investigation that I reported to you, my master. Ivan Vanko, whose ancestral home is in Russia, snipped into New York on Toby's smuggling ship 10 days ago. He drove legendary technology to find you, the boss, 3 days ago. His father is Ivan Vanko, a former Soviet physics PhD. Other information belongs to the encrypted archives of S.H.I.E.L.D., which requires your authorization to view. Of course, forced intrusion is also possible, but in this way, the possibility of being discovered by S.H.I.E.L.D. cannot be ruled out. Good guy, Ivan Vanko. Listening to the name Zora said, Marfa was immediately surprised. Calculating the time, it is not far from the beginning of the plot of Iron Man 2 in the original plot. I didn't expect that he would come to trouble me instead of me. Unlike the original plot, Tony did not indulge himself because of palladium poisoning, so it is impossible for him to go to Morocco to participate in any racing competition. So the plot has been deviated since I cured Tony's injury? It's really a pleasant surprise. In other words, as long as Ivan Vanko is solved, the system will settle the reward. Maybe the reward will be very generous because it completely subverts the plot of Iron Man 2? This is simply a free gift. Chapter 192 Ivan Vanko. 20 minutes later, Marfa pushed open the door of the Black Internet Cafe alone. Squeak. The Black Internet Cafe was originally located within the scope of Hell's Kitchen, and fortunately it was not destroyed in the recent Hell's Kitchen terrorist incident. It was originally one of the places for entertainment and recreation for the lower-level members of the Kingpin Gang. However, due to the gradual dissolution of the Kingpin Gang and a lot of new policies after Toby took over, the business of this internet cafe has been depressed. As the door of the Black Internet Cafe was opened, the few sparse customers in the internet cafe immediately turned their eyes to the door. After all, there are few strangers in this internet cafe, and it is even rarer to see someone dressed so formally like Marfa. Come to surf the internet. The manager of the internet cafe is a black man who is about 2 meters tall and extremely strong. His tattoos and gnarled muscles make him look quite like that. Marfa didn't have the leisure to pay attention to the man in front of him, and immediately wanted to go in to find a tool man, but he never expected that a thick arm suddenly blocked him. I'm asking you a question. Why don't you open your dog eyes and see that in Manhattan, everyone has to give me some face, Bobcat? With many years of experience in internet cafe management, Bobcat saw at a glance that the boy in front of him was probably here to cause trouble, and immediately reported his name. It was indeed as he said, because this Black Internet Cafe served many members of the Jinbin Gang. It was also taken care of by the Jinbin Gang. Although his name, Bobcat, was not well known among the underground forces in New York, it was also well known. However, with the gradual demise of the Jinbin Gang, more and more people did not take him seriously recently. I'm looking for Ivan Vank, Marfa said in a cold voice. I don't care whether you are looking for Yili or Mengnu. In my territory, you have to ask me, Bobcat, if you agree to it. After saying that, Bobcat immediately took out 2 tiger claws from his pocket and put them on his hands. Damn it. Marfa didn't say much. He immediately used the teleportation ring to tear open a space crack that connected to an isolated island in the Pacific Ocean. Then he grabbed the mountain cat's wrist with one hand and threw it directly into the space crack. The space crack closed. The whole process was done in one go without any drag. After playing around in the internet cafe, Marfa soon found 3 machines connected in series. There were a bunch of empty vodka bottles on the table. I think it should be the seat where Ivan Vanko sat before. But it was obvious that Ivan was also very vigilant. After discovering that the invasion failed, he hurriedly left the scene. Interesting. Zora, can you track Ivan's location? Marfa asked. I'm very sorry, Master. Ivan's anti-tracking awareness is very strong. He did not appear in any monitoring equipment. He did not touch any electronic equipment. Zora said apologetically. Although Zora's means are very powerful, as a consciousness existing in the network, once it is out of the network, the role it can play is actually very limited. Damn, is the tool man just going to slip away like this? Marfa thought unwillingly. Are you looking for the man who was surfing the internet at this location before? Just when Marfa was a little depressed, a man walked to Marfa's side and whispered. Oh? Have you seen him? Marfa said with a gleam in his eyes. The man didn't say much, just rubbed his fingers, and his meaning was self-evident. Seeing this, Marfa couldn't help but smile. It's a capitalist country. As long as you give money, you can do anything. He immediately took out a gold bar that had not been exchanged for gold coins from the storage space and threw it to the man. The man took it, looked at the heavy gold bar in his hand, and was dumbfounded. He just wanted a few $100s in tips, but he didn't expect the man in front of him to be so generous. As if he didn't believe his eyes, the man immediately stuffed the gold bar into his mouth and bit it with his teeth. After confirming that it was probably real, his heart was so excited that it almost jumped out of his chest. But the man was very cunning and soon woke up from the temptation of money. I didn't expect that the man's information was so valuable. The man thought secretly in his heart, and immediately planned to blackmail the boy in front of him again. But soon, the man strangled his greed to death. He saw everything the man in front of him did to Shan Meo just now. Although Shan Meo only opened a small internet cafe, with his physique, it was easy for him to beat 3 or 4 men. But Shanmao had no room to fight back in front of the man in front of him. He was even made to disappear by the magic of the man in front of him. Enough is enough, enough is enough. The man muttered silently in his heart. Bensonhurst, I've seen him several times in a tavern in Bensonhurst, Brooklyn. It's a gathering place for Mexicans and Russians, so I think the person you're looking for is probably there. The man said truthfully. Zola. Master, according to the analysis of this kid's micro-expression data, the probability that he is not lying is about 98.67%. Marfa certainly would not trust others casually, but like Jarvis, Zola also has the ability to analyze facial micro-expressions, so Marfa is not worried that the kid in front of him, who does not look like a specially trained kid, will deceive him. Very good, you are very tactful and did not deceive me. Marfa patted the man's shoulder in front of him and said with a comforting look. But the man was frightened by Marfa's action. The man naturally heard the sound coming from Marfa's mobile phone. At this moment, he couldn't help but feel fortunate in his heart. Fortunately, he did not lie just now, otherwise, wouldn't it be possible that he would be like a mountain cat and be directly made to disappear by the person in front of him? You are good. If you are interested, you can go to the Spider Gang. I believe it will be a good place for you. After saying that, Marfa immediately disappeared in front of the man. Spider Gang. Really? Only the forces that are strong enough to compete with a Kingpin gang can have such financial resources and strength? The man couldn't help but secretly clench the gold bar in his hand. He had already made up his mind to go to the Spider Gang after finishing the game. Bensonhurst is just a small block in Brooklyn. The area is not very large. With Zora's help, Marfa easily knew the location of all the small bars. Don't say it, there are really a lot of them. It really deserves to be a gathering place for Russians and Mexicans. Marfa sighed in his heart. Boss, another bottle of vodka, the one with the highest degree. Standing at the door of a sunken underground bar, Marfa heard an extremely rough voice. There were also many cheers mixed in it. When he opened the door, he saw a man with disheveled hair and a sturdy figure drinking with a bald fat man. There were already more than a dozen empty glasses in front of the two men, but neither of them had the slightest intention of getting drunk. The crowd of onlookers kept shouting and yelling, waiting for the birth of the winner. Humph! You come here to drink to drown your sorrows after the operation failed? If that's all you are, it's not worth it for me to come to you in person. Marfa's voice was not loud, and it was impossible for anyone to hear it in such a noisy environment. However, the man with disheveled hair shook his body suddenly, and his sharp eyes looked directly at Marfa. The two looked at each other and raised their mouth corners at the same time. There was no doubt that this person was Ivan. Ivan put all the last money in his pocket on the wine table, and walked towards the door of the bar without saying a word. According to the rules of the bar, this was a sign of admitting defeat. In an instant, booze filled the sky, and everyone made an international gesture to Ivan. If I wanted to hide, do you think you would find me so quickly? How much tip did you give that guy? The boss of legendary technology. Ivan said this softly when he passed by Marfa. Chapter 193 Hidden Mission. The reception room of legendary technology building. At this time, there were only 3 people sitting in the huge reception room. Without a doubt, they were Anton Vanko, Ivan Vanko and Marfa Maximov. Mr. Ivan, I have also brought Mr. Anton here. Can we have a good talk now? Marfa said with a smile, and her eyes could not stop admiring Ivan. If Ivan had not said that last sentence when he left the bar, Marfa might have taken him in, but she would never have taken a fancy to him as much as she does now. Although this person has a lot of problems, in terms of IQ, the only people who can compare with him in the entire legendary technology are Dr. Zola and Bruce Banner. As for Samuel, slightly inferior. Marfa will not look down on him just because he lost to Tony and Shield in the original plot. Therefore, even if Ivan said that there would be no talk if his father could not be brought here, Marfa did not have any grudges at all. As the saying goes, a man of great talent is not particular about small matters. And my bird. In ancient times, there was the story of Lord Zuin visiting a thatched cottage 3 times, and later there was the legend of Lear kneeling before Yu Qigong. In Ivan's opinion, his talent was not inferior to the above 2. But he had personally visited the door, but was kicked out by Marfa's people, which made Ivan feel suffocated and unable to vent. So, Ivan designed the previous scene just now, luring Marfa, the big fish, to take the bait and personally invite him to join the company. Of course, what was different from what Ivan expected was that he did not succeed in breaking through the network defense of legendary technology, and it can be said that he lost miserably. But even so, Marfa still appeared and invited him to legendary technology. However, Ivan was not very satisfied with this result. It was still the same reason he lost to Zola. It was too cheap to enter legendary technology in this way. But seeing that Marfa was so eager to recruit talents, Ivan also thought of testing Marfa. That's when he proposed that Marfa should first bring his father to New York, and then discuss other conditions. But he never expected that in just 1 hour, Aunt Vank had already sat next to him, and even changed into a nice outfit. Ivan was instantly upset. You know, it takes more than 9 hours to take an ordinary passenger plane from New York to Moscow, but Marfa only took 1 hour to pick Anton up. Can you believe this? So far, Ivan has understood 2 points. First, this so-called legendary technology is not as simple as he thought, and it may have surpassed the times. In other words, there are at least 1 or more scientific researchers in the legendary technology who are not inferior to himself. Second, Marfa has a high tolerance for himself. If it were someone else, if he had already controlled talents that were not inferior to Ivan, he would probably not care so much about Ivan. As for Ivan asking for a bird just now, on the one hand, the white parrot has been with Ivan for a long time, and he has some feelings for it. On the other hand, it is because Ivan wants to see how important his position is in Marfa's heart. But he didn't notice Aunt Vank, who was winking at him 1 hour. From Western Europe to North America, Marfa naturally couldn't really send a plane to pick up Anton. His legendary technology is not as strong as Stark Industries. Marfa really doesn't have such a thing as a private plane. But with a teleportation ring in hand, it's not a matter of minutes to bring Anton to the United States. In order to take care of Anton's feelings, Marfa even made a style for Anton and dressed him up. It can be said that Ivan was given enough face. In fact, whether Ivan is willing to be Marfa's tool or not, Marfa will use the light of temptation on him in the end. After all, with Samuel's previous experience, Marfa dares not to have expectations of people casually, and the light of temptation is undoubtedly the best way to ensure the absolute loyalty of the target. But for some reason, the more Ivan does this, the stronger Marfa's idea of conquering him becomes. This may be the reason why many men like to play role-playing games with their wives, even if they are married. After all, there is no resistance. Where's the excitement? What? Your bird. Hearing this, Marfa frowned and subconsciously looked at a certain part of Ivan's body. Feeling the deep malice in Marfa's eyes, Ivan's old face turned red. I'm talking about my white bird, not the giant bird. After saying that, Ivan also made a flapping motion with his hands, which created a strong contrast with his rough appearance, making Marfa's eyes irritated. Fortunately, Marfa also reacted quickly. I saw his 5 fingers formed into claws, and he pointed at the air in front of him and made a stroke. In an instant, a dark space crack that seemed to be able to swallow any substance appeared in front of the 3 people. Marfa did not hesitate and walked straight in. When he came out again, he was already holding a white parrot in his hand. Fuck. Fuck. The parrot was immediately startled by Marfa's grabbing of its legs, and kept shouting MMP. For a moment, Marfa only felt his eyes twitching. No wonder Justin Hammer gave Ivan a fake bird in the original plot, and Ivan saw it at a glance. It turns out that the bird can't say MMP. When the parrot saw its owner, it fluttered even harder. As Marfa's palm loosened, the parrot flew up and landed directly on Ivan's shoulder. Fuck, fuck. The white parrot was also very interesting. It kept making a fuss on Ivan's shoulder, as if complaining to its owner about Marfa's rude behavior towards him just now. What else do you have to say? Say it all at once. Marfa said in a calm tone, not annoyed by Ivan's unreasonable request. My father, Aunt Vank, needs a lot of life potions. His ability is no less than mine. Ivan continued to put forward conditions. Ziamoyan. Marfa shouted like this, and in an instant, a silver mucus split out of Marfa's body and directly sank into Aunt Vank's body. After a while, Anton shook his body and stood up from the wheelchair. Although he still looked old, he was obviously no different from those healthy old men in their 80s or 90s. How? How could it be? What was that just now? Aunt Vank asked in shock. However, Marfa ignored Anton's question. Marfa had her own considerations for showing the symbiote instead of using healing or potions directly. Ivan Vank could still be controlled by the light of temptation, but it was hard to say about Aunt Vank. Therefore, Marfa had already greeted Riot before ordering him to enter Anton's body, asking him to quietly absorb Anton's vitality and kill this old guy as soon as possible. After all, Anton was not a quiet person, which could be seen from his attempt to sell the arc reactor technology to the military for weaponization research. It could be said that Marfa was too cautious or that Marfa was too black-bellied. In short, any form of betrayal is absolutely intolerable to Marfa. It is enough to suffer a loss once. This is growth. Ivan Vanko, meet the boss. Ivan didn't know what Marfa was thinking, and he was very moved when he saw Marfa treating him so sincerely. Ivan had no ambition to become famous, nor did he have any intention to become king. All he wanted was revenge on the Stark family, all he wanted was to prove his ability and gain respect, and all he wanted was the health and longevity of his old father. And all this can be given to him by this seemingly young but extraordinary man in front of him. That's enough. In that case, let's sign a labor contract. Marfa raised the corner of his mouth slightly, and immediately launched the light of temptation at Ivan 3 minutes later. Ling. Congratulations to the host for successfully deflecting the MCU plot. The host is rewarded with 2,000 minutes of game time. The current remaining game time is 6,000 minutes. Please keep up the good work, host. Ling. Congratulations to the host for successfully conquering multiple plot characters and completing the hidden mission. You are not fighting alone. Hidden mission, you are not fighting alone. Mission goal, conquer at least 5 combat-type plot characters and at least 5 logistics-type plot characters, and make their friendliness to the host reach the level of absolute trust. Mission reward. 1. Enable the team function. The maximum number of team members is 25. For every additional person in the team, all team members will enjoy a 10% increase in all attributes. The upper limit of the increase is 200%. Mission reward. 2. Enable the team chat function. The team can enter the chat channel through mental thoughts and communicate without ignoring space restrictions. Chapter 194 Gwen's Voice. Hidden missions? Following the special missions, Marfa discovered a new world again. The so-called special missions are the missions that Marfa triggers after meeting someone or something happens, such as helping Toby become Spider-Man, and helping Tony become a disciple of Kamartaj. These missions are informed to Marfa in advance and asked to be completed by Marfa. Hidden missions do not have any mission prompts until Marfa completes them, and then they will suddenly pop up and directly issue rewards. Compared with special missions, hidden missions can be said to be pure luck, and there is no clue at all. Because you don't know what you are doing at all, you will achieve the mission goal of the hidden mission. For example, this time you conquer 5 combat-type plot characters and 5 logistics-type plot characters, and make their friendship reach absolute trust. Tony Maguire, Wanda Maximoff, Pietro Maximoff, Hulk, Riot, Natalia Maximoff, Django Maximoff, these are 7 combat-type. Dr. Zola, Samuel Stern, Ivan Vanko. Oh? No, there are only 3 logistics personnel? Who are the other 2? Bruce Banner? He should be coerced. Hulk was tempted by the light, and his loyalty is beyond doubt, but what about Banner? The reason why he is at ease as a tool is probably because of Hulk and Betty. Moreover, he and Hulk are one, which makes it very troublesome to judge. If it is Betty, this possibility is not ruled out. After all, Betty just wants to have a happy sex life with Banner, not to mention that they now have a child. The only one who can control Hulk and give them a stable life is Marfa. In this way, it is not impossible for the system to judge him as a logistics personnel with a good friendliness. Tony Stark, whether it is logistics or combat personnel, he has no problem at all. The problem lies in friendliness, absolute trust, which is difficult for a very opinionated person like Tony. In Marfa's view, the relationship between Tony and himself is already the limit of trust, but the word absolute is far from it. And Vank? There is a certain possibility, but Marfa doesn't trust him. This man has a bad record before, and Zora didn't stare at him because of Ivan's face. After careful thinking, Marfa still has no idea who the 2 logistics staff who meet the friendliness standard are. After all, logistics does not only refer to scientific research, but also funds, resources, and even laundry and cooking. To put it bluntly, they all belong to logistics. On the other side, Stacy's family. Today is Friday. According to the tradition of Stacy's family, Friday night is the time for the whole family to have a dinner. Every Friday night, the whole family will try to squeeze out time to get together and chat about family matters. But today's dinner is obviously different from usual. At the table, Gwen Stacy and her mother, Helen Stacy, are dismembering the steamed lemon sea base in front of them with a knife and fork. But George just sat there, pouring wine into his mouth one glass after another, and his eyes were fixed on Gwen, not moving away for a moment. Finally, George couldn't help it and put the wine glass heavily on the table. Pa! The sound of glass hitting the wooden table was particularly loud in the silent atmosphere of the dining table. Gwen's knife and fork trembled and almost fell to the ground. Okay, dear, Gwen is still young, she doesn't understand your good intentions. Helen said soothingly. In Helen's eyes, her husband is good in everything, upright, brave, considerate, family-oriented, and has strong endurance, cough cough cough. The only problem is that he is a bit stubborn and it is difficult to be shaken by things he has determined. Unfortunately, Gwen has now run into the gun. I told you before to stay away from that family. Do you think my words are wind in your ears? You are my daughter, how can I hurt you? George said with a look of regret. For George, his daughter is the apple of his eye. From childhood to adulthood, he is really afraid of melting her in his mouth and afraid of dropping her in his arms. Although George does not have much time to take care of Gwen due to work reasons, he will take care of Gwen at all costs whenever he can squeeze out a little time. It can be said that he perfectly interprets the word good father. And what about Gwen? She has been very sensible since she was young, and has strong self-care ability. The couple does not need to worry about her studies. The Stacy family is well known for their loving father and filial daughter in the Queen's Police Department. But now, dear, my daughter has grown up, and it's not a big deal for her to have a boyfriend. But next time, don't stay overnight at someone's house, you are still a student. Seeing the tension between the father and daughter, Helen immediately came out to smooth things over. What do you mean by having a boyfriend? What do you, a woman, know? George's face immediately became colder when he heard this. I might as well tell you that Marfa Maximoff is a level 8 agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., Shadow. The missions they carry out are more than 10 times, 100 times more dangerous than mine. And the files of Wanda Maximoff and Pietro Maximoff have also been encrypted by S.H.I.E.L.D. As far as I know, even their father, Django, has officially joined District 13. Do you know S.H.I.E.L.D.? Do you know District 13? With such people, your safety is impossible to be guaranteed. Can you bear to see me send black hair, send blonde hair? George said angrily. S.H.I.E.L.D.? District 13? Hearing this, Helen frowned and felt a chill in her heart. She had indeed never heard of these two names, but from George's serious attitude, it can be seen that it is most likely some official mysterious organization. And the 10 times, 100 times the danger level made Helen even more frightened. What kind of mission is it to be 10 times or 100 times more dangerous than the American police? You should know that few people go out on the United States at night. To put it bluntly, it is the result of poor public security. Racial conflicts, religious conflicts, class conflicts, party conflicts. These are the root causes of unrest in the United States. Every morning, when George goes out, Helen's heart seems to be hanging in the air, because she doesn't know whether her husband can return home safely at night. But now, her daughter's partner is 10 times or 100 times more dangerous than her husband. How can Helen accept this? Baby, how about we change one? In my opinion, Andrew, who came to our house last time, is very good. Helen said tentatively. However, as soon as these words came out, George's face became even darker. Well, others may not know, but as the head of the Queen's Police, how can he not know? Andrew Garfield is already on the blacklist of S.H.I.E.L.D. and is currently wanted by S.H.I.E.L.D. You are clearly pulling your daughter out of the tiger's mouth and sending her into the wolf's den. Dad, you know what? You have always been my idol. Gwen ignored Helen's advice and flattered George as soon as she came up. George's face improved slightly, and the anger in his heart also dissipated a little. Finally, it was not in vain to raise this girl. You are handsome, kind, upright, and often help Aunt Susan next door to move things. Huh? Hearing this, Helen's eyes immediately revealed a hint of murderous intent. Don't flatter me, your dad doesn't buy it, get to the point. George immediately changed the subject and said, this girl is so troublesome. Why does she say all kinds of things? I just saw that her husband died early. It's not easy for a woman to have a family. Think about the neighbors and help each other a little. George thought secretly in his heart. No, listen to me. Every time I see you bring those bad guys to justice and bring peace and stability to the city, your image in my eyes will rise. You're a hero of New York, a hero of the whole United States, and a hero in my heart. It is because of you that the crime rate in Queens has been declining year by year. I am proud of you. Mom, do you regret marrying Dad? Although he often goes out early and comes back late, although he often makes you worry. Gwen said sincerely. Hearing this, Helen couldn't help but fall into deep thought, and the murderous look in her eyes flashed away, and turned to reveal a strong love. I am proud of you too. Helen looked at George affectionately and said. Huh? George breathed a sigh of relief. It should be considered that he escaped a disaster. Thinking so in his heart. But I think I still have to talk to Susan. George, Cyrillic lettered, I know Marfa is the shadow. He saved the entire Central City High School. I clearly remember the day he fought the spider monster. He was brave and fearless, kind and brave. I saw your shadow in him. Although I don't know what SHIELD is, I think he is working silently for people's peace and sexual happiness like you. I don't regret liking him. Even if it means being in danger, I will not look back. Just like my mother doesn't regret marrying you. Gwen's eyes flickered and she said firmly. She was completely shy and reserved. George. Let that bastard come to our house later. I'll say it in advance. If he can't get past me, I will definitely not agree to you two being together. George gave in. What else can he say? His daughter likes heroes because she admires him. He can't tell her that he is actually a scumbag and doesn't deserve his admiration and worship. Girls can't be kept at home when they grow up. If you keep them, you will only make enemies. After saying that, George tilted his head back and drank the wine in the glass. Chapter 195 Max Dillon. I have confirmed with my eyes that I have met the right person. After getting George's tacit consent, Gwen was so happy that she almost floated. First, she found Ying, and then she got a blessing from her parents. What could make Gwen happier than this? But as time went by, Gwen gradually discovered something that bothered her. Marfa was really away from home. Even if Gwen went to Maximov's house every few days, it was rare for her to meet Marfa. And Marfa himself was like a blockhead. No matter how she hinted, he seemed to be unable to feel her feelings. Straight man? It shouldn't be. When she met Marfa in Times Square before, he was obviously very popular with the women, and many girls greeted him. With an extremely depressed mood, Gwen insisted on her pursuit journey. Max Dillon, an electrical engineer at Osborne Group. Although Max is considered a middle-level manager in a department in terms of position, in fact, no one respects him because he is black. This is racial discrimination. No matter what your status is, in the eyes of most white people, you are still a heretic, a person of low origin. Fortunately, Max is a very optimistic person. In his eyes, everyone's contempt and rejection of him are encouragements. No matter how others arrange him, he superficially regards all this as support for him. However, can someone who can become an electrical engineer of Osborne Group really be a person with low emotional intelligence and a missing string in his head? Obviously impossible. Max is just hypnotizing himself, constantly giving himself psychological hints, telling himself that there is no racial discrimination in this world. This world is very beautiful, people need him, and people like him very much. With this mentality, Max worked diligently and uncomplainingly in Osborne Industries, and only then did he step by step reach his current position. Hey, Max, can you make me a cup of coffee? I heard that the coffee you make is the most fragrant in the whole office. A white employee who had just joined the company said. Ah. Max, who was drawing a blueprint, looked up with a puzzled look on his face. But when he heard the other party say that he made the best coffee, he immediately showed an extremely happy smile on his face. Of course, I'm glad you recognize my skills. In fact, I'm a famous coffee master. Max boasted a few words, then put down his work and ran towards the water bar. That's right, he ran, not walked. This is enough to show how excited Max was at the moment. But after he left, ho ha ho ha. A burst of laughter came from the office. Senior, I didn't expect what you said was true. This guy is really a fool. The new employee who had just played with coffee said to an old employee next to him. What's that? Watch me later. The man with glasses who was called Senior by the new employee pushed his glasses and said. Soon, Max walked to the new employee with a cup of hot coffee and carefully placed it on the table. Try it. Max raised his eyebrows at the new employee, as if he was showing off something. He was very happy to be recognized. Max enjoyed the feeling of being needed. The new employee was a little embarrassed, Especially after seeing Max's expectant expression, he inexplicably felt a little sympathy. Huh? He picked up the cup and took a sip. The coffee was nothing special, just a most ordinary American coffee. But looking at Max's expectant expression, the new employee still managed to force a smile. Very good. You are worthy of you, Maximum. The new employee said with a double talk. Really? I told you, my craftsmanship is absolutely the best. Do you want another cup? Max supported his slightly Mediterranean head with his hand and said happily. No, 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 enough, enough. The coffee is not good when it is cold. The new employee politely refused. Papa. Max patted the new employee's shoulder in a familiar way. Remember to call me when you want to drink it later. But before Max returned to his workstation. Max, I still can't draw the rectification plan diagram of the company's circuit well. I will submit the plan at the meeting later. Can you help me take a look? The man with glasses said. No problem. As soon as the voice fell, Max immediately ran to the workstation of the man with the glasses, but waited for him to look at the man's computer. This is not a bad drawing, this is simply not done at all. How about this? I made 2 plans, I will send you one later, and we will say that we did it together in the meeting. After saying that, Max went straight back to his workstation and gave the man with the glasses the plan he was most satisfied with. Since it is a cooperation, we must come up with the best one, otherwise it would mean that there is something wrong with their abilities. After receiving Max's drawings, the man with the glasses winked at the new employee next to him, and then made an international gesture in the direction of Max's workstation. Opening the manuscript, the man with the glasses directly deleted Max Dillon in the column of the drafter of the drawing, and then filled in his own name with peace of mind. It's great, 2 months of work, I finished it in 1 minute. The man with the glasses leaned back in his chair, looked out the window, and felt refreshed. Max, make me a cup of coffee too. I'm used to your coffee, and other people's coffee is not tasty. The man with the glasses spoke again. Okay, wait a minute, the most delicious coffee in the world will be here soon. As soon as the voice fell, a series of hurried footsteps sounded, and Max's figure disappeared in the office again. Ho ha ho ha. The laughter resounded throughout the office. Max, who had just left the office in the distance, faintly heard the laughter coming from inside. That's great, everyone likes me very much. Asgard, also known as the gods' domain, is the place where the gods in Norse mythology live. On this day, the whole Asgard was filled with gongs and drums, firecrackers, red flags, and crowds of people. Everyone gathered in the square in front of the temple, looking in one direction with expectation. Because today, their prince, Thor Odinson, will return triumphantly, bringing back the good news of honor and victory. Finally, with a burst of colorful rays of light, the whole square immediately became more boiling. That was the light of the Rainbow Bridge. Thor was back. On the Rainbow Bridge, Thor was wearing a battle suit, a helmet on his head, and the cloak behind him, which symbolized victory and glory, rustled. He held up his Mjolnir hammer in one hand, Mjolnir, and kept greeting the people around him with the other hand. The scene was very similar to the appearance of some fair-skinned and beautiful idols attending fan meetings. Countless soldiers lined up on both sides to maintain order on the scene. They all looked solemn, fearing that these young and beautiful Asgardian women would break through the line and run to kiss the prince. Finally, as Thor slowly walked into the temple and knelt in front of the throne, the whole of Asgard was in a boiling state. On the throne, the god King Odin pushed the Odin's spear, Gungnir, which represented authority and power, into the ground, and the uproar instantly subsided. Everyone listened quietly, waiting for their king's next speech. Thor Odinson, my heir, my eldest son, has been entrusted with an important task for a long time. Odin spoke in an official tone. On the other side, Loki, who is also a prince of Asgard and Odin's son, did not look very happy. Especially the 3 words heir, which pierced his heart like a knife. Chapter 196 The King of Brain. Boss, are you ready? Samuel Stern walked up to Marfa with a syringe and said. It's just an injection, hurry up, why are you so serious? Marfa said calmly. Who told you it's just an injection? Samuel said with a wicked smile. This syringe contains only glucocorticoids, cyclosporin and thiopurine, in short, drugs used to relieve rejection. Although the cultivated cell nucleus uses the boss's gene as a model, it is still an alternative allogeneic transplant after all, so this kind of medicine is still needed. Samuel explained patiently. After that, he pressed a button on the table. A device immediately appeared in front of Marfa. On the device, fine needles like cow hair were densely distributed on it, and the number was more than tens of millions. Gudong. You, don't tell me you're going to stab me with this thing later. Marfa swallowed deeply and said with some fear. It's okay, boss. This time we're only transforming your left hand. After all, for safety reasons, it's better to do it step by step. After the transformation is successful, you can simply rest and adapt for a period of time, and then you can perfectly control this power. Left hand? Not bad, not bad. Marfa thought secretly in his heart, but then, as if he thought of something, he suddenly showed an extremely terrified expression. Do you mean that you will transform the little boss in the future? After saying that, Marfa lowered his head and glanced, and his meaning was self-evident. Of course, in order to ensure the consistency of the body, the little boss also needs to go through the needleboard. But don't worry, when all the transformations are completed, the giant cell nucleus will reversely affect your DNA. At that time, even if you lose your hands and feet, the regrown body tissue will automatically become a binuclear cell. Therefore, the transformation does not need to be continued. It will benefit you for life after about 10 times. Samuel said. Then let's start. In the end, Marfa gritted her teeth and decided to continue the experiment. It has come to this point, there is no reason to retreat. What's more, if little Marfa also becomes a binuclear cell. Isn't this an alternative local doubling technique? Osborn Group. At this time, Gwen had just finished today's work and was about to go home. As a high school student, being able to intern in Osborn in advance is something that countless people dream of. Therefore, no matter how eager she was to rush to the Maximoff family, Gwen was still very serious when it came to work. The Osborn Industrial Building is nearly 100 stories high, except for the reception hall on the ground floor and the high-rise offices on the top floor. Each floor represents a scientific research project. In terms of weapons production, Osborn Group may not be as good as the original Stark Group, but in terms of the number of patents and the research direction of design, Osborn is definitely not comparable to Stark Industries. Unfortunately, compared to some high-tech civilian scientific research, in the United States, the profits of military scientific research are obviously more considerable. It is also for this reason that the former Stark Industries group can steadily suppress Osborn. Since Stark Industries delisted and turned from a listed company into a private enterprise under Tony Stark's one-man show, Osborn has become a top rebel force. It is much stronger than the chaebols such as Hammer Industries, Vanguard Technology, and PIM Technology. Walking into the elevator, Gwen found that there was already someone standing in the elevator. Judging from his clothes, he should be an electrical engineer from Osborn Industries. After all, the clothes of the power department are all insulated, but the material is very different from ordinary clothes. The man was a black man with a Mediterranean look, and his face was full of smiles. Obviously, he was in a good mood now. As an intern, Gwen politely nodded to him slightly, as a greeting, and then stood in the corner, keeping a long distance from the man. There is no doubt that this person is Max Dillon. After all, there are not many black people in Osborn Industries. Hey. This girl just nodded to me and smiled at me. Is she interested in me? Max thought secretly in his heart. While thinking, he did not forget to tidy up the few remaining hairs on his head. No, why is she so far away from me? Oh. I understand, she must be embarrassed to talk to me, she is shy. Yes, I am so outstanding and so popular. It is natural for her to be a little inferior. But who makes me a kind person? Max thought so in his heart, and his footsteps moved towards Gwen immediately. Ling. We have arrived at the first floor. The elevator prompt sounded, and Gwen rushed out of the elevator immediately. She did not notice Mike's behavior just now, because at this time her mind was full of what dishes to cook tonight, in case Marfa came home. She has learned a lot of Sokovia dishes from Natalia these days. P.S. I feel sorry for George for 3 seconds. In the elevator, Max, who was about to start a conversation with Gwen, was stunned as he watched her leave. Oh, this girl, really, she's still shy. Ha ha ha. As handsome as I am. Thinking of this, Max immediately raised his head higher. But just as he walked out of the elevator, his cell phone rang. It was the manager of the power department. Max, you stay and work overtime today. There's a problem with the circuit on the 66th floor. Although the voice on the other end of the phone was a bit noisy, Max still heard the supervisor's words clearly. Mr. Rockwell, I. Before Max finished speaking, the manager named Rockwell on the other end of the phone spoke again, but there was some impatience in his words. Okay, it's decided. I'm very optimistic about you. You have to work harder. I'll be promoted soon. I hope you can take my place and do a good job. After saying that, Rockwell hung up the phone without waiting for Max to say anything else. Okay, it's done. What are you eating tonight? I'll treat you. Just think of it as a celebration for my promotion. Rockwell pinched the slender waist of the female secretary beside him and said with a smile. How can this be? Mr. Will got promoted, and we, the subordinates, should treat you. How about this? Let me have the opportunity to treat you tonight, first to congratulate you on your promotion, and second to thank you for your care for me for so long. Of course, we can't just eat, right? 123 games, one-stop service, what do you say? The man with glasses who teased Max before nodded and bowed. HMPH, you kid. Okay, I'll let you go. I'm leaving now, so I won't bother with you. Do your job well. I've already recommended you to the higher-ups. When I leave, you should move up soon. Rockwell patted the man with the glasses on the shoulder and said seriously, but the corners of his mouth were unconsciously slightly raised. Obviously he was very satisfied with his younger brother's performance. What are you waiting for? Let's go. Who of you wants to work overtime with Max? The man with glasses said loudly. Ha 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 ha. In an instant, laughter broke out in the office, and everyone started to pack up their things. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 197 The Incredibles? Back in the office, Max's eyes dimmed as he looked at the empty desk. Today was obviously his birthday, and he had clearly gotten up early and prepared a birthday cake. Forget it, forget it. Who made me so outstanding? I'm afraid that no one in the entire power department can maintain Osborn's power grid alone except me. What's more, the manager is so optimistic about me, so I can't let him down, right? Soon, Max's optimistic personality swept away his depression. 66th floor? If I remember correctly, the research project there should be bioelectricity. Looking at the time, it was now time to get off work. According to Osborn's regulations, equipment maintenance such as circuits and networks must be carried out after 8 o'clock in the evening. By then, except for a few floors, most floors will have been off work, so the impact on Osborn building can be minimized. On the other side, in the legendary technology building, more than 10 kilometers away, in the basement, Marfa has completed the cell transformation of his entire left arm. Thinking about that feeling now makes Marfa tremble. Although the needle holes are as small as cow hair, they can easily pierce bones in terms of hardness. Hundreds of thousands of such needles are inserted into the body at the same time. Thanks to the excellent anesthesia technology of legendary technology, the wound can be repaired immediately after the operation through red medicine and healing. Otherwise, think of Zoe, think of wrong mama. At this time, Marfa looked at Samuel again, and inexplicably felt that he and the old lady holding the needle were so similar. He clenched his fist, and it was just as Samuel said, there was a sense of unfamiliarity. It should be that the giant cell nucleus affected his original control of his left arm. It's a pity, it's just a Hulk arm. If I get a Killen cell nucleus transplanted into it, can I automatically comprehend the Payan palm? Marfa whispered softly. Killen? Payan palm? What is that? Samuel Stern, who was standing aside, immediately became interested and asked. Killen. A mythical beast in Eastern legends. It has a lion's head, deer horns, tiger eyes, elk body, dragon scales, and fish tail. It can walk on clouds and go straight into the sky, and it can also dive into the abyss. It symbolizes good luck and happiness. Tisk, why am I telling you this? Marfa said without caring. Samuel's eyes were shining at this time, as if he had discovered a new world. Myths and legends. After sending Marfa away, Samuel immediately returned to his workshop and looked up relevant information about Killen. Auspicious beast? Thirst beast? Immortality? Four spirits. Giraffe. As he browsed more and more information, Samuel's brows became more and more furrowed. After all, It is just a mythical creature, and many documents have very different descriptions of Killin. Some say it has a dragon's tail, some say it has a fish's tail, some say it has a single horn, and some say it has 2 horns. It seems I have to ask my boss for a vacation and go abroad to relax. I hope I can find something interesting. Osborne Industries, 66th floor. Tap. 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 Max's footsteps sounded particularly clear in the empty research room. Unlike the pitch-black floors on other floors, because the research project on this floor is bioelectricity, from time to time, a trace of azure blue electric light flashes in those culture tanks. At first glance, it looks like a ghost fire, which is particularly creepy. Hiss. Hiss. The sound of electric current is endless, like a symphony, adding a bit of lively atmosphere to this quiet night. Electric eel, electric ray, electric catfish, stargazer, Amazon electric snake. Holding a small flashlight, Max felt like he was in a zoo, admiring the creatures in front of him one by one. There are so many species. Squeak. Suddenly, an electric eel seemed to be frightened by Max's flashlight, and the electric light flashed, making the originally dark laboratory bright. Like a chain reaction, the creatures in other culture tanks followed suit and released a current in their bodies. Ha-ha. Ha-ha. Looking at the scene in front of him, Max was not surprised but happy. Little cuties, are you blooming birthday fireworks for me? You're welcome, you're welcome. Soon, Max came to a culture tank that was very different from the other culture tanks. The creature in this culture tank looked like an electric eel, but its body was more flexible than that of an electric catfish. Its teeth looked extremely sharp, and it was somewhat similar to Zanzingayu. Its head was somewhat similar to that of an electric snake. In short, in Max's opinion, it was particularly cute. What kind of species is this? Why haven't I seen it before? Is it a newly discovered creature? Max murmured. Hey, little cuties. Why didn't you just join them in celebrating my birthday? Oh, I see. Are you planning to prepare a surprise for me? Thank you so much. After appreciating the various creatures in this layer of the laboratory, Max no longer hesitated. Playing is playing, but work still needs to be done seriously. Finish it as soon as possible and go home to eat cake as soon as possible. Thinking of this in his heart, Max immediately picked up a flashlight to check the circuit fault. With his experience, Max soon found the source of the circuit fault on this layer. It was a loose cable interface located above the unknown strange fish just now. Little cuties, wait a little longer. When I turn on the power for you, the oxygen supply equipment will start automatically. Saying this, Max quickly climbed up the metal plank road along the ladder. On the other side, Marfa came out of the laboratory and rushed home without stopping. Now he urgently needs to take a hot bath and lie down quietly to rest. To relieve the soreness and swelling on the left arm. Squeak. Just when Marfa was about to open the door opened by itself, and then a soft body crashed into Marfa's arms. Ah! The high-pitched scream of shock instantly resounded throughout the neighborhood. The Maximovs, Wanda, and Pietro heard the sound and quickly ran over to see what happened. But at this time, Gwen was lying quietly in Marfa's arms, her face flushed with shame. Django, what are you looking at? Go away. Natalia, that's great, my son has grown up. Wanda, you say no, but your body is still honest. Pietro, Gwen, why don't you stay tonight? Marfa's bed is big and can accommodate everyone. As soon as Pietro finished speaking, he immediately attracted the angry glares of the crowd. Oh. It hurts, it hurts, it hurts. Wanda, are you going to rebel? I'm your brother. It hurts, it hurts, it hurts. Be gentle, your ears are going to foul off. It hurts, it hurts, it hurts. I was wrong, I was wrong. Marfa's bed is very small, Gwen, you should leave quickly, you can't sleep in it. Well. Wanda's face turned even darker. Pietro. You are looking for death? Subconsciously, Wanda used chaos magic directly. In the blink of an eye, Pietro turned into a meteor and disappeared in the distant sky. Wanda, you. Now it was Gwen's turn to be dumbfounded. She saw the scene just now clearly. Marfa was a shadow and had superpowers. Wanda had guessed that, although Marfa had never admitted it. But it was shocking that her best friend was also a superpower. No wonder Dad said this family is full of freaks. Could it be that everyone really has superpowers? The Incredibles? Doesn't that mean my future kids will also? Gwen seemed to have thought of something, and her face immediately turned as red as a cooked crab, almost dripping with water. Chapter 198 Swish and Whoosh. Well, it's cold outside. Of course, if you want to keep each other warm, it's not impossible. Wanda said. Ah. This. As if she had thought of something, Gwen immediately broke out of Marfa's arms like a frightened little rabbit, and then plunged into the night without looking back. Although Gwen was full of shock at this time, although Gwen had many questions in her heart at this time, the shyness in her heart forced her to leave first. Gwen needed to digest the excitement and shock of tonight. As Wanda said, the night in New York was still quite cold, so cold that Gwen couldn't help shivering. There was still a long way to go home. Looking at the dim lights in the distance, Gwen couldn't help but smile a little. He is really good. Thinking of this in her heart, the scene of accidentally bumping into Marfa's arms just now seemed to appear in front of Gwen again. What's so funny, can you share it? A familiar voice came from behind. Hearing this, Gwen immediately turned around and looked. Marfa was holding a blanket in her hand, looking at her with a smile on her face. Of course, if you're willing to take me back. Gwen's mouth showed a hint of sweetness, and she tilted her head and said playfully. Seeing this, Marfa immediately took 2 steps forward and draped the blanket over Gwen. So beautiful, Ms. Gwen, how do you want me to take you back? Is it a whoosh? Or a swish? A whoosh? A swish? What's the difference? Gwen said with a puzzled look on her face. Then try a swish first. After that, Marfa took Gwen in his arms, and then he made claws with his 5 fingers, activated the effect of the teleportation ring, and tore a crack in the space in front of him. Looking at this magical scene in front of her, Gwen no longer cared that she was still in Marfa's arms. What did she see? A time-space tunnel? Not to mention Gwen, a top student, even any physicist on Earth would be shocked by the scene in front of him. The two of them passed through the space crack and reappeared on the rooftop of legendary technology. This is the rooftop of Tony Stark's beach house in Malibu Street, California, which Marfa built. Usually, it is mainly used for Marfa to enjoy the sunbath, or lie on the hanging chair and look up at the stars. There is a swimming pool, a pavilion, a garden, and a dining table on the rooftop. There are even hot food and 2 cups of hot drinks on the table. That's right, it's hot drinks, not red wine. Don't ask why. The answer is that minors can't buy alcohol. The incident happened in a hurry, and Marfa didn't have time to ask someone to arrange these things for him. Damn Wanda, she actually threatened me with the last time she escaped to Hawaii. Damn it. That's right, the reason why Marfa prepared all this and brought Gwen to legendary technology was not because he suddenly changed his personality. And the reason why he appeared so late was because Wanda made him recall the memory of accelerated falling again. Marfa could see that the Maximoff family had already regarded Gwen as a predetermined family member. But as a time traveler, Marfa seemed to be standing in the perspective of God from the very beginning, and preconceivably used the image of the characters in Marvel movies in his previous life to fit everyone in reality. Gwen Stacy, she is beautiful and kind, but she is Peter Parker's girlfriend, and even died in the end because of Peter Parker's involvement. For Gwen, Marfa is more regretful. A person may like a character because of a film or TV work, but it is difficult to love that character because of a movie. Because the two are not on the same world, this is Marfa's psychological barrier, or the demon in his heart. Even though he has been in this world for a long time, he still regards himself as a higher dimensional existence at this time. Who would be unable to extricate himself from a comic character because she is perfect? This is why Marfa rarely goes home recently, even though he knows that Gwen runs to his house every few days and knows Gwen's feelings. It's not that Gwen is not beautiful or bad. It was the influence of the preconceived plot that made Marfa more eager to protect the girl in front of him and prevent her tragedy from happening again, rather than possess her. This is looking at the layers of green plants surrounding him, and then looking at the bright starry sky above his head. The flickering candlelight on the dining table, and the aroma of food that filled his nose. In an instant, Gwen felt that the previous chill had been warmed up by Marfa without a trace. Gwen, I actually have something to say to you. Marfa pushed away Gwen, who was leaning on him, and said with a very serious expression. If you don't love, don't hurt. Marfa planned to confess to Gwen, although he might be loved by Wanda in the future, but Marfa didn't want to delay Gwen. Marfa didn't want to be the kind of scumbag who just played around. However, before he could say anything, 2 soft balls pressed against Marfa's chest. Then, Gwen kissed Marfa's lips directly with lightning speed. The dragonfly touched the water, and it was gone in a flash. Marfa was stunned, and the whole person stood there as if she fell into an ice cellar. I do. Gwen's shy whisper came to her ears. After that, Gwen ran directly to the dining table like a cat whose tail was stepped on, and tasted the delicious food Marfa prepared for her, cheeseburgers. There was no way. It was late at night and she was in a hurry. Marfa couldn't think of anything else to buy except the burger shop opposite Stark Industries. I do? No, you do. I haven't said anything yet. Feeling the warmth on her lips, Marfa felt that her heart beat faster. It shouldn't be appropriate to say that I don't mean that to her now. How about looking for another opportunity? Marfa thought to herself. Gwen, is the food tonight not to your taste? Looking at Gwen eating the cheeseburger with relish, Marfa asked in confusion. But Gwen wrinkled her nose slightly and said with some anger. No, this is a starlight dinner prepared by my boyfriend for me. I can't waste your kindness, can I? Marfa. What's the connection? How did he become my boyfriend? With a witness of the stars in the sky, the two of them quickly finished their luxurious dinner. Marfa, you just said swish and whoosh. We've tried swish, but what does whoosh feel like? Gwen asked shyly, lowering her head. Whoosh? Okay, let's try it. It's getting late. I'll just send you back so that Uncle George won't worry. After that, Marfa grabbed Gwen's hand with one hand and controlled telekinesis with the other. Gradually, the two of them were enveloped by a lavender halo and slowly flew off the ground. Then, with a whoosh, they disappeared into the night. Floating 100 meters in the air, looking at the dim lights under her feet and feeling the night wind passing over her cheeks, Gwen couldn't help but tremble with fear. The whole person was hanging on Marfa like a koala, afraid of falling down accidentally. Don't worry, it's safe. Marfa was a little breathless in Gwen's embrace, so he comforted her. Unexpectedly, Gwen hugged him tighter. I don't know if she was really afraid or just wanted to enjoy her boyfriend's hot chest. Let's talk about two things. At this time, on the 66th floor of Osborne Industries, Max was also enjoying the heat. But the heat he enjoyed was the heat of being roasted. Just now, when repairing the circuit, Max accidentally got an electric shock and fell into the culture tank, accompanied by a splash sound of falling into the water. The mutant electric eels in the culture tank seemed to be frightened and became extremely manic. Seeing that their territory was invaded by a pitch-black monster, the mutant electric eels were not willing to let him go, and immediately began to attack Max crazily. Lightning flashed, thunder rolled. The culture tank of less than 27 cubic meters was like a super light bulb, illuminating the entire floor of the laboratory as if it were daytime. It hurts. Shouts and cries for help resounded throughout the building. However, the more Max shouted, the more excited the mutant electric eels became. The electric eels rushed to Max like hungry tigers, and each opened its mouth full of sharp teeth to bite Max. The strong current, along with the mutant electric eel's toxin, poured into Max's body. Finally, after holding on for a moment, Max's eyes went black and he fainted completely. But the next second, the mutant electric eels began to panic. Because the current in their bodies was actually sucked away by the black monster in front of them. Boom! Accompanied by a huge explosion, the culture tank exploded. The mutant electric eels flowed out along the water, fell to the ground, and began to flutter in place. However, Max's body surface had been completely roasted by the current. Waves of strong meaty aroma overflowed, which was several times more fragrant than Marfana cheeseburgers. Chapter 199 Electric Man. On the rooftop of Stacy's house. Would you like to go down and sit for a while? Gwen said shyly after leaving Marfa's warm embrace. I'm afraid that Sheriff George will tear me down. Marfa said jokingly. Puff. As expected, Gwen laughed out loud upon hearing this. Don't worry, if I hadn't got the pass, do you think I could still go to your house? I didn't expect that Tang Tang Ying would be afraid of the police. Gwen covered her mouth with one hand and held her belly with the other, like a delicate water lotus, looking particularly charming under the moonlight. What can I do? I can't just fight him directly. I'm not worried about being charged with assaulting a police officer, but he probably can't withstand my punch. Marfa said helplessly. Oh, really? Why don't you fight me? A majestic and somewhat angry voice came from the stairs of the rooftop. It's not such a coincidence. Marfa turned around and saw George Stacy looking at him with a playful look on his face. Fortunately, it was time to get off work, otherwise he would have picked up a baton and hide him. Ahem, Dad, why are you here? It's okay for a boyfriend to be caught on the spot for saying bad things about his father. Gwen looked embarrassed. Your mother is downstairs. If you don't come back, I will go to Maximov's house to arrest people. How is the crime of kidnapping sentenced? Marfa. Well, it turns out that in the eyes of the father-in-law, sons-in-law are all human traffickers. Oh. Wait, why do I consider myself a son-in-law? Okay, then you two can chat slowly. I have something else to do, so I will. Before he finished speaking, Marfa's body floated up again. Fortunately, the moonlight was still good at night, and he could see clearly, otherwise he would be mistaken for a ghost. Boy, try flying again. After saying that, George took out his gun. That's right, it was a gun. Although public guns cannot be taken home after get-off work, there are legal gun licenses in the United States. Adult citizens can apply for them if they meet certain conditions. Of course, the control of bullets is still very strict. George just wanted to talk to Marfa, so although the gun was pointed at Marfa, he didn't actually load it. But Marfa is afraid of guns? With his current defense, if it is not a special gun bullet, it will not even leave a red mark on his body. What's more, it's late at night. If George drags him home for a while, this matter will be a real hammer. In short, it's the best way to go for a walk first, and then find a suitable opportunity to explain to Gwen. Thinking of this, Marfa ignored George and immediately turned into a residual image and disappeared into the vast night. Damn it. Bastard, don't let me see you again in the future. George shouted to the sky. Immediately, without saying a word, he turned and walked towards the stairs. Don't go back to sleep? Do you also want to grow wings and fly away? George said coldly. HMPH. Gwen ignored George and ran to the stairs. It was too sweet tonight. She had to go back and digest it, otherwise she would get fat. However, no one noticed that on the rooftop of the building opposite, a figure was holding on to the metal railing to prevent falling. When the figure disappeared, there was only a clear handprint on the metal railing, proving that he had been there. As the sky gradually brightened, the employees of the Osborne Industrial Building returned to their jobs one after another. When the door of the Bioelectricity Research Laboratory on the 66th floor was pushed open, everyone was dumbfounded. Let alone the water stains on the ground, the corpses of the mutant electric eels were really scary. The most important thing was that in the center of the electric eels, there was a charred barbecue, ahem, it was a human-shaped corpse, with wounds all over the body, but there was not even a drop of blood on the ground. At first glance, it looked like a huge black pepper steak, which made people, couldn't help, feel nauseous. I don't think I'll ever want to eat barbecue again. Me too, I won't eat steak either. Let's eat vegetarian together, it's a good way to lose weight. The crowd was talking. Soon, George Stacy came with his men to check the situation. After forensic identification and combined with the traces left at the scene, the incident was finally classified as an accidental work-related death. The Osborne Group paid a large sum of money for this, and the insurance company also paid a generous insurance payment. However, since Max Dillon had no relatives alive, according to U.S. law, all compensation, except for Max's funeral expenses, was nationalized. In the morgue, Max's body was quietly placed. Due to sufficient funds, the morgue generously arranged a high-standard single room for Max. Although no one came to mourn, he died decently. However, such a high-standard single room, for some unknown reason, suddenly short-circuited. The freezing equipment used to slow down the decomposition of the body directly sparked. Sizzle, 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 sizzle. Electric sparks fell on Max's body, like a panacea, activating the cells that had long lost their vitality. Thump, thump. Gradually, the sound of heartbeats sounded again, echoing in the empty morgue, which seemed particularly creepy. Finally, Max regained consciousness and sat up suddenly from the cold jade bed. The sudden pain came again, causing Max to struggle and accidentally fall off the bed. Where am I? Looking at the darkness around him, Max was very scared. He subconsciously took a few steps back, but accidentally bumped into a lamp used for lighting. Seeing that the lamp was about to hit Max, he subconsciously put his hands in front of him, trying to protect himself. Sizzle, sizzle. The blue arc jumped in his palm, and then condensed into countless tiny lightnings that rushed towards the light. Boom. There was only a burst of explosions, and the light that was about to hit Max was actually blown to pieces under the attack of countless lightnings. Max was frightened after witnessing the scene just now, and looked at his hands with dull eyes. However, he saw that the charred black on his hands had already peeled off, and what appeared in front of him was a pair of somewhat translucent hands. Countless blood vessels were densely distributed on them, and if you look closely, you can even find the flow of blood and the expansion of blood vessels. And the arms were already covered with countless fine scales, looking like a fine crystal product, and they looked particularly magnificent against the blue light. Kirakara. Kirakara. Max shook his body and slowly climbed up from the ground. Every time he moved, a lot of charred black slid down from his body. The blue eyes, which were like a small arc reactor, were particularly eye-catching in the dark environment. Fear, despair, and a little joy of surviving a disaster. Max walked slowly to the temporary storage place for the relics and wrapped himself up in a random piece of clothes. He wanted to go home and ease his complicated mood. On the dark street, a man in a windbreaker, wrapped tightly all over his body, was walking forward. With every step he took, the cars on both sides of him would light up their headlights, as if to welcome the arrival of the king. Gurgle. Max, who had not eaten for a long time, suddenly felt a sense of hunger in his stomach. Following the guidance of instinct, Max walked to a car and put his hand on the headlight. In an instant, the electric energy in the car battery was like a dam with a flood discharge port opened, and streams of electricity poured out and directly poured into Max's body. The warm feeling directly hit every cell of Max. Comfortable, so comfortable, just as comfortable as doing 499 3 times in a row. I want electricity, I want more. Max murmured, and his eyes subconsciously looked at the tallest building in Manhattan, Stark Industries building. Chapter 200, Sea King overturns. Asgard, in Thor's palace. Boom. Thor overturned the long table in the hall in great anger. For a moment, fruits, vegetables, fine wine and delicacies were scattered all over the floor. Just now, the frost giants of Jotunheim sneaked into the treasure house of the God King and tried to steal the ancient ice coffin, or ice box, in the treasure house. It would be fine if it was a normal time, but just now it was Thor's coronation ceremony, a historic moment for him to inherit the throne and take over power from Odin. The appearance of the two frost giants interrupted the ceremony, otherwise the one standing here would not be the prince of the Aesir, but the king, the real king of the gods. Thor may not care about the throne, but he will not allow anyone to trample on the glory of Asgard. Thor originally planned to lead the army in person to teach the frost giants of Jotunheim a profound lesson so that they would know who is the boss. As a result, he was severely criticized by Odin. From heaven to hell, there is nothing better than this. Behind Thor, Loki couldn't help but smile with relief like an old father as he looked at his angry brother. But he walked forward slowly, and the smile on his face turned into sorrow in an instant. It's not a good idea to accompany me now, my brother. Thor sat down on the stairs, and didn't even have the mood to turn around and look at Loki. Alice. Loki showed a look that said I understand your pain very well, and sat down next to Thor. This should have been my most glorious day. Thor still felt angry, and immediately planned to complain to his little brother. That day will come, sooner or later. Loki comforted, but what he thought in his heart was not the case. As the third princess, ahem, as the second son of Odin, the king of Asgard. From childhood to adulthood, Loki has had a dream, hoping to be loved by his parents, supported by his people, and recognized by everyone like his brother Thor. But what about Odin? Not only did he give Thor the powerful artifact, Mjolnir, but he had also long since decided that Thor would be the heir to the throne of the Aesir. No matter how Loki performed himself, in Odin's eyes, he received only bland praise. Without Meowhammer, without the throne, and without fatherly love. Over time, Loki could not help but begin to envy his silly brother. That feeling of imbalance lingered in his heart every day. So, Loki changed, and he began to do all kinds of bad things, teasing his brother from time to time. He threw the snake into his brother's trouser pocket, shaved his future sister-in-law, Sif, while she was sleeping, and even made trouble when the Dwarf King was remodeling Meowhammer for Thor, making Mjolnir's hammer handle much shorter than the original design. Everything was just to attract Odin's attention, so that the father who rarely smiled at him would pay more attention to him. But in the end, Odin only gave him the title of the god of trickery. He didn't even reward him with a decent weapon. I still remember that when Loki and Thor were still children, Odin took them and told them the history of Asgard. At that time, Odin said that both of them could become kings, but what was the result? In Loki's view, his father Odin was a complete liar and was too partial. Since he couldn't treat them equally, why did he give birth to a son like him? Could it be that he just couldn't help it one night? Actually, I think you are right, my brother. About the attitude towards the frost giants, about the attitude towards the king of the frost giants, Laufey, about everything. Today, they can break through the defense of Asgard, but who can guarantee that they won't tomorrow, or the day after tomorrow? Sooner or later, they will come back. Maybe, they will bring an army next time. Loki said sincerely. Listening to Loki's words, Thor's eyes became brighter and brighter. You understand me, little brother? That's what I think. Brother doesn't love you in vain. Thor thought so in his heart, but his face was full of worry. Looking at Thor's appearance, Loki smiled secretly in his heart. But any action you take will go against your father's will. This sentence was like the last straw that broke the camel's back. Hearing this, Thor stood up suddenly. That's right, he was going to Jotunheim. Even if it went against Odin's will, he would teach those Smurfs what it meant to be obedient and what it meant to be subservient. You said it well. This is the only way to ensure the safety of our defense. As if he had made up his mind, Thor's eyes flickered and he said firmly. No, Thor, are you crazy? Loki was secretly proud of himself and silently praised his wit, but he began to persuade Thor not to be impulsive. Loki had lived with Thor for nearly 1,000 years and knew him well. Once something was determined, 9 Volstex could not pull it back. If Thor really went to Jotunheim to make a scene, it can be imagined that no matter what the result was, Thor would inevitably be punished by Odin, and it was not impossible for him to be directly deposed. By then, as Odin's sweetheart, wouldn't Loki be able to ascend to the throne in one step? The throne of the God King of Asgard is mine, and no one can take it away. Loki clenched his fist and thought silently. There is a pair of brothers in Asgard who are fighting openly and secretly, and there is also a pair of sisters in Midgard, which is the earth, who are fighting fiercely. Tony. On the top floor of the Stark Industrial Building, in the private residential area, the voices of Pepper and Hill never stopped. And what about Tony Stark? At this time, he was rolling his dead fish eyes, looking at the tarmac outside the window with his eyes blankly. Marfa, you bastard, where have you been? Come and save me. Tony shouted in his heart. A year ago, Tony would never have thought that as the king of the sea, he would drown one day. And not only drowning, but also drowning in boiling water. Double damage, you dare to believe it. If Tony were to choose again, he swore that he would never raise fish again, and even if he did, he would never drink Marfa's potion. Oh, no, wait, why should I not drink Marfa's potion? Wouldn't it be better if I didn't know him? That's right, I shouldn't have contacted that kid in the first place. I figured it out. It turns out that the root of all these evils is that bastard Marfa. Damn it, don't let me see him again. Every time I see him, can't beat him. Every time I see him, doesn't seem to have any handle. By the way, I can find 2 for him too. I can't bear this kind of suffering alone, right? That's right, that's it. It's better to share happiness than to enjoy it alone, and it's the kingly way to suffer together. After figuring everything out, Tony felt much more comfortable. But soon, the problem came again. Tony Stark, knew countless girls on the cover of magazines, but he really didn't pay much attention to girls of 16 or 17 years old. Jarvis. Sir, at your service at any time. Help me screen for women who are now in New York, between the ages of 15 and 20, beautiful, clean, and worth more than $100 million. Tony Stark said with a look of evil humor. Sir, it is difficult for me to define the word beautiful. It depends on personal aesthetics. Jarvis answered truthfully. That's right, everyone's aesthetics are more or less different. What Tony thinks is beautiful may not be beautiful in Marfa's eyes. Then find. However, before Tony finished speaking, 2 chills came from behind him inexplicably, a bone-chilling chill. As if thinking of something, Tony immediately became timid. Without saying a word, he used all his strength to run towards the helipad on the balcony. Want to run? Hill, who was standing behind Tony, smiled coldly, and then casually pulled out a wire from the table beside him. Swoosh. 2 seconds later, Tony deeply experienced how the old cowboys in the West used to catch horses and cattle. That aim. Marfa, I was wrong, I shouldn't have thought of you, I was really wrong. Tony Stark, who was being dragged back by the rope, had tears in his eyes. What a sin. He thought so in his mind, and suddenly, swish, the entire Stark industrial building suddenly lost power. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.